Yeah, if I could have your attention, please. I just want to make it clear that we're starting the meeting with Cindy and I up here because we have a couple of more or less formal presentations that we want to conduct from here. But ultimately, we'll be coming down and we'll kind of joining in the collaborative process down on ground zero. Would you all, want to welcome all of you to the meeting of the External Relations Committee of February 27th. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Rebecca, could you please identify who's here?
Director Cicada
Yes, I'm here.
and Director Thomas.
I am here as well. Okay, at this time, I'd like to open it up for public comment. You know the drill here, about 3 minutes and all of that verbiage. Do we have any public comment? But let me say that the format of this meeting will be a little bit more lax than it has been in the past. And if you have something specific you want to bring up here now, but we'll have time to I don't know, not necessarily call it chit chat, but a less formal opportunity. to discuss. Interactive communication.
Thank
What
you.
about that?
I like
Okay.
it.
I'm staying with the format of the public comments on things that are not specifically on the agenda, but tangentially. In the minutes of the meeting held some time ago, it mentions a letter that I submitted as part of the comments, but I don't see it as part of minutes. So I would want it added as part of the public record that that letter was submitted to the board. Also coming up in workshops that we're planning to hold, we'd really like to have a board member also be part of that committee. And on
What was that? A workshop?
yeah, I
committee?
understand there's a workshop coming and it's later, so maybe the more appropriate time is when that workshop is being
Oh,
discussed.
your workshop with staff?
Whatever Mike is talking about, some
I'm not
workshop later on the agenda. That,
Okay,
okay?
well, okay,
And then I'm noticing that on Facebook posts, as part of the, some CCWD employees are posting likes and comments, and I just think it's a bad look to have, you do a post and several employees of the organization have an interest in the outcome are, yay. I think it's better serving the district to know what the ratepayers are reacting to. And if you're getting little to no reaction, that's a message as much as a lot of reaction. But to get most of the reactions from people affiliated with CCWD, I think it gives it a bad look, my opinion. Thank you.
Can I address that, please?
Sure.
Francisco, I think there's nothing wrong with employees of the district being proud of the work that their district does. So we're people too. We're in the community. We're ratepayers. We can like Facebook posts, and then there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so noted. Any other public comment today? Anybody raising their hand online at all? Just in time for public comment. You have nothing?
what?
Okay. Let's go to approval of the minutes, item 3A.
Francisco, on that letter, that was minutes you wanted on the open meeting, or was it to this meeting? Okay, so there's nothing I have to correct in our minutes today. Our minutes are okay regarding your letter from this meeting. Okay.
to the board. And that's all it says is I submitted a letter, and I didn't see a letter.
Okay, and you want the letter included, so I can make an approval to approve the minutes with the adjustment to include his letter.
That's actually not standard protocol, but if you want me to put them in there, that
I think he asked for it.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think?
that's fine. If you make a motion,
But that's what I did. I made a motion to adjust the minutes as amended to include his letter. Now, if you say otherwise, based on her conversation.
Well, I'd feel better about advising or weighing in on this if I could remember specifically what the letter said.
Well, I don't think I was here either because this is my first in-person meeting. I may have been online.
Mm.
I don't think
Okay.
it's going to be a problem. It's minutes and
Okay, you made the motion with that amendment or that
Yeah,
request?
amended.
Okay,
amended to include his letter.
all right. I can go along with that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are none opposed. Okay, so that takes care of that. Okay, under 4A, customer service updates.
I would like us to go down there now
Oh.
because the stuff
Yeah.
that they're going to talk to, I want to have dialogue about, I believe. Like this survey, I imagine you're going to update us on, right? So can we go down there now or?
Let's,
the first two items they're going to present from the podium. And then the third item is when,
Okay, well, one of the reasons why I was hoping to have things broken down a little bit is I want to discuss potentially both of theirs. I know the main thing with Kelly is I want to talk about that survey. So I suppose we could do that in here because it has to do with some kind of tracking so that, okay, we're good. I can wait.
okay,
We can do it this way.
Kelly Richards, are you prepared for the customer service update?
Excuse me a minute, I'm gonna grab my.
Intend to get an explanation of why.
Good afternoon,
Yeah.
Director Thomas
Yeah.
and Director Cicada. Kelly Richards, Business Services Manager for CCWD. I am here today to provide an update on customer service. I always get this wrong. Where am I pointing? There we go. Okay, so as we typically report on every month when we meet, call queues, emails, work orders. For January specifically, we did have our usual customer inquiries of CCWD side and customer side leaks and concerns. We had some water usage and billing questions as we do typically every month. We're still getting calls from folks who are asking questions about the rate study or cost of service and how their rates have changed, when the next increase is going to happen, things of that nature. Obviously, we utilize the resources that we have in customer service. We're also pointing those folks who are able to access the CCWD website to utilize the rate calculator on the website, which will help them anticipate future bills based on consumption numbers and how those change. And again, everybody's consumption is different depending on what their requirements are, size of their lot, size of their home, how frequently they're there, things like that. So they can utilize the rate calculator on the website. They can also call in and speak with a customer service representative who can help calculate that for them as well if they don't have internet access. But that's a helpful tool, I think, moving forward as we're coming into summer months as well.
How
So
many calls would you say you get on that particular subject?
For that particular subject, I would say folks tend to call in first about once they receive a bill. If they have a question, if it looks outside of the norm, they will normally call us, or if they were aware that they had a problem at the property and they're looking to receive information about, our leak adjustment program, or if there's anything that they can do. But I would say, I don't know, maybe a third of our calls. So
Do we, on our website, when somebody's using that calculator, is there somehow, some way with we track this kind of information? How many times people are using it?
I mean, I'm sure that we can track, analytics on the site to see how frequently that particular page is being visited.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
there's actually a lot on the website that I think we can track that you may already do. I was wondering if that was one of them.
Right. And so, and I know that that is the rate calculator specifically is not just, utilized by customers, but also utilized by staff. We use it when we go out and we do presentations. We can engage in that way. And then obviously when we're on the phone with customers, we utilize it in customer service. If we're looking to provide a customer with a quick answer on what they can anticipate, or if they're, wanting to know impacts of draining and filling a pool, things like that. We can provide information fairly quickly using that calculator as a resource. We've had some flushing efforts going on within the Jenny Lind area and Ebbets Pass area. So we've been getting some calls about that. As you can imagine, anytime that we do any kind of widespread flushing efforts, we might have some calls in from people who are reporting discolored water, or, some abnormal, maybe air in the line, or bubbles in the water, things like that. So we're advising customers on what to do, how to clear the lines, have it run for a couple minutes just to kind of flush everything on their side, if you will. So we're getting some calls for that. Not too many. I think a lot of folks in those areas are familiar with these efforts that we do annually.
Don't we post a sign or
Yes.
give notice saying you're doing it? So
We do.
should get minimal.
We've done, Kelly's been great in his outreach efforts. Customer service is obviously available, answering questions for folks. We put A-frames out in the communities. And I think, Damon, you might be able to confirm this. If we're going to be in a certain area, we'll move the A-frames, right, to that particular area. So we're trying to notify folks in that particular section, if we're flushing, that we're going to be in that area. So we're trying to do some widespread communication efforts there. And then we have had some customers calling in and asking about the web portal. Again, when we rolled it out last month, it was more of a kind of a soft rollout, if you will, because as I'll elaborate on here in a little bit, and I'll give a small demo for everybody on the portal itself. There are some things that we're still working with Tyler on to try to I would say maybe make the portal interface a little bit more specific to CCWD. So we're hearing from customers that are getting on there. We actually can see on the back end that customers are enrolling in notifications, and that I can start reporting a little bit more on these analytics and customer engagement from the portal side once we really start pushing out a little bit more PR on it, if you will, and outreach. And the reason why we haven't really moved forward on that yet is, and done anything widespread, is, like I said, there's still some things that we're coming across with Tyler as the host that need to be tailored a little bit, specifically because we bill bi-monthly. We bill from the middle of one month to the middle of the other month, 60 days later. So we're trying to make it more interactive and specific to CCWD, and not just cookie cutter out of the box type of thing.
You mentioned customers are signing up for notifications. Is that just any kind of email notification, or just saying that maybe you have a higher water use or something?
So once I get into the demo, I'll show you what the options are that customers are signing up for, and what's available to them. But I can see in the back end of the system that customers are already starting to receive notifications. So it's working for those who have enrolled in it and actually are crossing whatever thresholds they have set. Just some call analytics for January. We've handled about 48 calls a day. The call handle times seem to be a little bit longer, and I think that is associated with, folks receiving their bills and, how the increases have affect those bills. And then also with the portal, we're engaging folks a lot more about the portal and having those conversations. So I think that's leading to a little bit longer call handling time. And then calls have taken a little bit of a jump as far as our total time, but not as much as they would have because we do have all staff in customer service. We now, because we added Robin in December, we're able to adequately, handle a lot of these calls. A couple of the things that I wanted to touch on that customer service is working on, and goals that I'm trying to set for us as far as percentage of calls answered on their first attempt and how many calls are going to voicemail. One thing I should preface this part of the presentation with is customer service does return all calls we receive. But when they come in, if we have CSRs that are assisting somebody at the counter, they're in a meeting, they've stepped away from the desk, we have other calls that we're handling, we might not get the call on the first ring, on the first go round. And we're trying to work to improve that. So I did just want to reference the first smaller graph there at the bottom for percentage calls answered. You can see we used to have, when we had fully staffed, fully trained CSRs, we were pretty good at answering those first calls when they came in. And then we lost staff. We were in the middle of summer, which is our busiest time. And it dropped down a little bit lower than obviously we'd like it to be, but we're starting that climb back up, I'm happy to say, and we're going to continue making that climb. So I just wanted to report on that. And then
Can I ask a comment on some
Mhm.
of those? Because, the phone system was a big complaint of mine at some point.
right.
So when somebody calls and leaves a message
Mhm.
and you guys are busy all day long and you can't get to that call back, what's your procedure? So like the next day, okay, you spend the next day before you answer live phone, you go to the 10 calls that might be voicemails, or
I
what is
can
that?
tell you, Cindy, that our protocol in customer service is that there are no voicemails left at the end of the day.
Oh, nice. I like to hear that.
So we do not leave at the end of the day, myself included, until all voicemails have been addressed.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That takes a big commitment. Thank you.
So when I get to, and then when we start to look at percentage of calls that actually do go to voicemail because we weren't able to answer them, we do call all of those folks back by the end of the day. And you can see that we did have an uptick in the amount of calls that went to voicemail, again, having to do with the same issue. We were understaffed, our volume was higher, but now we're starting to drop back down again. So I just want to show these are some of the things that we are really trying to track and get better on in customer service, and I can continue to report on those things
Nice.
when I come in here and provide you all an update.
And those charts that you got, that
Mhm.
comes directly from that phone system, or
It does. It
I-
comes
so-
directly from the phone
you just
system.
kind of key it in, you want the report,
Yeah.
and there it is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So part of what I wanted
Oh.
to spend some time on today.
Kelly, I think there's a question behind you.
That is a to be determined, and I think I was waiting mostly, Francisco, until we were fully staffed. I really wanted to see what we were capable of, and then I'm also going to be taking a look at how we're spending our time in other areas and time management to make sure that we're utilizing our staff appropriately. We're not overburdened, but we are making this a priority. So I'll be able to establish that hopefully within the next few months, since we're fully staffed now, and I should be able to set a benchmark.
Good.
So customer portal demonstration today, a couple of things that I wanted to just kind of showcase and give a little bit of a demo on. I will be jumping over here to this computer in order to facilitate that, so bear with me just a moment. But really, I wanted to show the difference that we're seeing as far as the graph is concerned, the consumption is concerned. It's not just showing billed consumption every 2 months, it's now showing daily consumption. And so there's a lot more data points, there's a lot more data and information for customers to work with when they log in. And then we also have the alerts available, and I'd like to demonstrate what those alerts actually sound like and look like when they come through. So I'm going to jump over here real quick.
And you'll make that a full screen demo thing?
Yeah, it should come up full screen on the screen up there.
I can move closer, so.
Okay. I'll try to speak into the microphone here as I'm giving the demonstration. So full transparency, I'm showing you my personal account as a CCWD ratepayer. There's no shame. Yeah. Well, we have a very large family. So one of the things that I did want to highlight for everyone today is the change that we'll see here, or that customers will see when they log in as far as their graph is concerned. We have a lot more consumption data points that we're looking at, and you can view those in you can view that data in several different ways. So you have options up here to view actually, even though it says monthly, this is one of the things we're working with Tyler on. We want this actually to say bi-monthly, because that's truly what it's reflecting. And what this is demonstrating is the billing period for that particular customer. So I am a cycle 1 customer in Valley Springs, and so I get billed in the odd months of the year. And so it'll show me that this is which time period it's spanning for that billing period, how much consumption in cubic feet there was, and then the cost for the bill that I was issued. So this matches everything. If you pulled out your billing statement and you looked at this, it would absolutely match. And it does, you can have it compare to prior year, and as we're able to move forward and we have more data, pulling from the system, you'll be able to do a very easy comparison with the same billing period the year prior to see if you've made any improvements, or it's just a quick reference, and you're able to see that comparison between the last calendar year billing period and the current. You can, yeah.
This particular application that we're seeing here, is this specifically what's provided by Tyler? Or-
Yes.
Okay.
So this is all data that is coming over from our AMI system, and they are displaying it for the customer here, but this is all facilitated through Tyler. You are able to also view consumption on a daily basis. So again, you can look for a particular month if you're wanting to take a look and see how you did, or if there's anything trending. A lot of times customers will want to look and see if there's any days in particular that stood out, or if they're trying to gauge if maybe their irrigation is running too frequently and they're seeing that there's a constant kind of reoccurring consumption that's happening. You can even drill down hourly by day and see exactly how much is being used and when. And this should give an idea, obviously, especially if folks are trying to monitor from a distance, or if, maybe they are just wanting to get a little bit more, again, of a idea of their usage patterns day by day. All of this can be downloaded and so they can analyze it, on their computer if they want, to do that. You can set custom parameters, and if you're looking for something, a time frame in particular, you can do that. They're able to do up to a 60-day period of time. There's so much data in the system that if you really go beyond that, it's almost too much data for the system at this time to be able to kind of display, I guess you could say. So they're working on, they're constantly looking for feedback from end users on how to make the portal experience better. And those are the types of things that we've already been in contact with them about. Maybe if it can't be displayed here, is it something that can be, downloaded or, exported in a different way if customers were looking for something more, long term. So we're continuing to work with them on those types of things. And then if there aren't any questions here, I can jump to alerts. Okay?
There's a couple of questions back there. Let's take Mike back here first. Sure.
Okay. Turn that on there for us, Mike.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I've logged into the portal here.
Do you see any leaks?
And I see a substantial amount of unbilled consumption in the screenshot.
Right. So just to answer you, this is one of the things that we're working with them on. Because we bill in the middle of the month, that is the time frame that they're looking on fixing. Actually, right now, they're doing a production run today, and they're going to be correcting that unbilled consumption threshold depending on the billing cycle that you belong to. So that is right now, as it stands, not accurate.
Okay.
It will be
because
changed.
If it were accurate, and I were running a business, I would be freaking out right now. because
Absolutely.
It represents tremendous revenue linkage if you multiplied that times the number of residents that might be experiencing a similar thing. So you're saying that data I'm looking at is how?
Well, just the time frame. So where it says unbilled consumption right here, and that time frame it gives, that's what's going to be modified. That's the data and everything that's being provided below is accurate. It's just where it says unbilled consumption from 12/30, like for me, it says 12/31/23 to 2/26/24. It should say 1/16/24 to 2/26/24, because I've been billed all the way through up through January 15th of this year. So they're modifying that time frame.
Okay, so you're saying that it's unbilled, that it will be billed.
Correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
so
Well,
it's basically
It's
the data.
been billed, potentially. It's been billed. So what you're looking at, you've been billed for some of it, but not all of it until they change the date range.
Okay, so this isn't a leak on my property.
No.
Kelly.
This is just
Okay.
providing you the almost like disclaimer that you're seeing consumption up through the current date, but you may not have been billed for all of that yet, depending on where your billing cycle last ended.
Kelly,
Because the
could-
disparity in the curve is, the delta between what I'm showing actual consumption and this curve is
if
quite
he,
substantial.
could he just do a
Little
date
bit.
range?
That's the temperature.
And also Kelly, couldn't he just use the custom and do a date range
Yes.
from the date of the current bill to current to see what's not unbilled?
Color matches
But they're-
that, which says unbilled consumption. That's what makes me believe that it's.
Oh, okay. So that's a darker red. This is like a orange red, but I can work with them on that.
Change the colors.
The
Yeah,
dark
I
red
can-
and the orange red are two different things. Okay.
Well, but these are the feedback that I can work with them
Jump
on.
here to see.
Absolutely. Well, it needs,
Okay, because I saw the legend unbilled consumption.
yeah.
That's what jumps off the page.
Okay, I'll make a note of that and I'll
Okay.
see if they can alter the colors on that. So it's not confusing.
Francisco, go
My
ahead.
suggestion.
Good idea.
Or whatever, that has not been billed.
In another color.
and it's boom, right there, because it's still slide, right?
Sure.
Right.
Mhm.
So if you're on cycle one, it won't ever change, and then on cycle two, it'll never change.
Yeah.
But it'll always tell you, hey, this is where you build, this is where you're not.
That's great. Yeah, I'm happy to provide that feedback to Tyler and see what they can do on their side, but these are absolutely talking points that we're having with them for things related to this. So I'll bring that feedback back to them and see what we can do.
I read somewhere that the California state is recommending so many gallons of usage per person per day. Okay, I would encourage us considering putting what those limits might be. So people know how close they're getting to what the limits are going to be, especially if we start putting out conservation measures, you can figure out, okay, if you're going to exceed the measure, this is where the line is for you.
Mhm.
Just another idea.
Great, thank you.
But if the guideline is consumption per person per day, is there any place on there where they can click that there's 5 people in our household?
I don't know. I'll have to see what the capabilities are and if that's something that they're able to add in there. Obviously, Tyler, handles customers all over the globe. So that is something specific, I think, to California, and would probably be, something that we'd have to build in there per se. It's not necessarily anything that they roll out as a part of the initial package.
Yeah, well, I just mentioned that because of the difficulty that would be presented by not knowing how many, what's the sense of having a bar if you don't know how many people are in the house? Okay. Any other questions?
So then moving over to the alerts that are provided. So there are several different ways that you can view the data that's being provided on this site. Oh, and it's going to make me, that's fantastic. Sorry. Security measures. So, from the landing page, you can view the consumption. You can also view it specifically by going to the left side of the screen and selecting consumption there. Same with the alerts. So you can manage your alerts by clicking right there within that screen, and it takes you directly to the alerts that are available in the portal at this time. And then you can also go to notifications and access it there. But this is the same screen it's going to give you from either landing page. And you can choose to receive notifications via email, phone call, or a text message. And if you prefer one, 2, or all 3 options, you're able to select 1, 2, or all 3 options, depending on, how you would like to be notified. We do have leak alerts available. There are thresholds set within the system to let customers know if there's any abnormal usage or a potential leak. The way that the portal determines whether or not there's abnormal usage or a potential leak is based on thresholds that we set on our side for a moderate, severe, or critical leak. And then it looks at a 3-day period of time. So it needs to see something within that moderate, minimum and maximum, the severe minimum and maximum, or the critical for a 3-day period of time in order to send you a leak alert. So that is the parameter there for that. Our consumption threshold alerts for daily, you can set it for daily consumption or bi-monthly consumption. And this average daily use is based on a 12-month period of data, 12-month period of time. And you can certainly, it gives you the average daily use here as a jumping off point. And you can certainly keep it at that number that it provides you. Now, granted, it's just an average. So you may want to change this either higher or lower, depending on whether you're in winter months or summer months. And you can certainly add in there what you would like it to be. So this is all customizable and you can set your, threshold alerts. This is all measured in cubic feet. And then you can also toggle on and off a vacation threshold alert. So you can let the system know that you are not going to be at your location for a specific period of time. And you are not expecting any water consumption to be occurring while you're gone. And so any consumption that is over, a decimal of a cubic foot, you're going to want to receive a notification on.
Kelly,
Yes.
you can't change that to gallons. It's only cubic feet.
Because we bill in cubic feet, it's measured in cubic feet for the thresholds. It's based on how we bill. I could work with them to see if they're able to give additional information for the average daily use and also have it in gallons. But again, these are all kind of specialized changes to the system that would be required.
Is the customer able to give feedback to you folks from this portal? And if so, then they could, if they're saying, oh, I want it in gallons, you would know, but if nobody's complaining, I wouldn't change it. I was just.
Yeah, I
curious.
think we're obviously going to get a lot more feedback once we do like a more of a widespread launch and we start getting folks engaged a little bit more on here and setting these thresholds up. We're going to receive a lot more notifications or communications from them on things they would like to see or how they would like it displayed on the site. And we'll certainly continue to work with Tyler to see what we can do to, again, make the end user experience more beneficial and not just, out of the box.
Right,
if you
but
will.
right now they have that option to tell you, hey, I want it in gallons, or is that option on, not there? It's more.
It's
We do
not
a
there.
survey or something.
Right. If we start hearing back from folks as they're using this, hey.
And how would you hear back from them right
Oh,
now?
so they can call us.
Okay.
They can also send a notification to us through the portal. They can contact customer service.
So they can do it that way. If they send a notification to
Mhm.
customer service, they should be able to say, hey, I like it, but, or whatever.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we encourage customers to do that because, as if we are continually reaching out to Tyler and letting them know, I mean, I know we're just one customer for them, but if we're reaching out and saying, hey, we're hearing from our customers that this is beneficial, then they'll take it back to their production team and see what they can do on their side and, maybe even implement it more widespread for their.
But for right now, they do have a way of contacting you, whether it's, it'd be ideal, like for me, if I'm using this, I can just send a quick, like a little chat thing to them, hey, this is good or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
So you can go in and set up these thresholds here, and that is how we're encouraging customers to engage in that way. And this is, I think, one of the more beneficial sides, of kind of flipping that switch on the smart portal side of the system. We have had the customer portal there, but this is a lot more interactive. This is a lot more engaging. We're empowering the customers quite a bit more to get in there and set alerts as frequently as they would like to receive them, how they would like to receive them, and kind of, again, putting the power in their hands to really take control of their water consumption and be alerted when they would like to be alerted of certain situations. One of the things that I did want to demonstrate at the end of this here is what the call may sound like if there is let's say we do a vacation alert and we would like to receive a call. So this is going to be just one example. Is it? It's going to have me log in probably. Okay, there we go. So I'll hold this up to the microphone. I hope everybody can hear it.
That your ring, Joe?
Press 1 to continue.
Can everybody hear them?
This is a message letting you know that you have exceeded a vacation consumption threshold on your water meter. You used 200.55 cubic feet of water and had a daily threshold of 150.00 cubic feet. Please contact Calaveras County Water District at 209-754-3543 if you have questions. To repeat the message, press 1. To exit the system, press 9, or just hang up the phone.
Where does that phone number, whose phone number is that? Customer service?
It's customers. Yeah, it will
So-
take you to the main line.
And if it's after hours, it'll go.
If it's after hours, it will go to our mother load answering service and folks can
They'll-
call into that, and then on call would be notified if there's any kind of emergency. And again, these are all customizable. So we have emails available, we have text message available. That was the phone call, and a lot of it is, the message is very consistent. And we're obviously encouraging folks to reach out to customer service if they have any questions or concerns about the alert that they've received. But I think this is a great jumping off point and a step in the right direction as far as engaging our customers and having them, you know, feel like they have a little bit more control over their water consumption and what's going on there at their properties.
Very good.
Kelly, on that call, is that initiated on a computer that Tyler is in control of, or is it coming from our facility?
So we have control of what is called the back office of the smart meter portal. So we have total control over customization for those messages and what we want an email message to say, a text message to say, a phone call to say. And obviously there are different types of alerts, so we can customize them depending on if it's a daily consumption alert, a bi-monthly consumption alert, a vacation alert. So that's all customizable. And then we can obviously go in there and set the leak alert thresholds, you know, in the back end of the system for what is considered or system-wide to be a moderate leak at the property. And it does break it down by commercial, residential, irrigation. So we can take a look at, you know, obviously a leak off of an irrigation or commercial meter might be more substantial than a commercial meter or a residential meter. So we can set thresholds that are appropriate for the account type. And we have the capability to do that.
Okay. You started off by saying that the customer can select the frequency of the notifications. So if you want to, I want to make sure that I understand what that might cause. If I go on and I select that, I want to be notified every month. If I had a severe leak that started on the first of the month, I wouldn't want to wait until the end of the month to find out.
So basically what's going to happen is it's all based on the thresholds that the customer is setting. So, you know, if your average daily consumption, Russ, at your property is, say, you know, 30 cubic feet, and you don't want to be notified.
How many gallons is that?
Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep going.
I am a number crunching all day. My brain is, but if you set a threshold that is close to that average or even like below that average, because maybe it's a winter time and you don't use as much in the winter, you'll receive a notification right away.
Okay.
And if your threshold is set maybe a little bit higher than your average, it's going to wait until it reaches that threshold to notify you. So if you want to know right off the bat
Yeah.
when, you know, it's happening, you'll maybe want to set your threshold a little bit lower. But if you're getting tired of being notified every single day that you're crossing the threshold, then you'll go in and you'll adjust it up a little bit because maybe you're using a little bit more right now. And so you don't want to be notified every day when you cross a certain threshold.
Okay, well, getting back to Francisco's earlier comment about the state's maximum or suggested maximum per person,
Mhm.
that's in gallons. And I know that it's difficult because we bill in cubic feet,
Mhm.
but certainly with your comment about Tyler handling these accounts for districts around the world, they must have encountered that before. There's got to be a solution to that because it, what good does it do to have a bar on your screen that represents 350 gallons a day? If it,
Right.
if you're setting your threshold at cubic feet per day.
And that is again, just based on how we bill. So it's going to, so if we were an agency that built in 100 cubic feet or in gallons, it would be reflected that way in there. But I can work with them again and see what we would need to do in order to have a conversion like that in there.
You know how on a typical website, if there's a some piece of information and you can click on it, what I'm visualizing is the possibility that they might provide the opportunity to click on your cubic feet consumption and have it automatically convert it to gallons. Just pop
Yeah.
up, just so that that shouldn't be too difficult to do. I'm sure that they've looked into that before. Can you find that out for us?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Sorry about the interruption.
One
No,
more.
fine.
So when somebody's setting up their alerts, do you have little pop-up or frequently asked questions? So you could give it just say a little note, or remember like what you just said to him about how you could set it, make sure that there's some kind of like I say, a frequently asked question, or if somebody's trying to decide
Mhm.
what they want to set, a little help on determining what that might be.
And we can utilize, there is an area to the side, to the right-hand side of the portal page where we can add information and useful, helpful tips to customers. So we can add that in there. We can also actually link out of that area. So if we had a how-to, we could
Yeah.
actually just put in there, and so it would be more static, right? And it would say, for assistance in setting up alerts, please click here. And then it'll pop open a new window with, the how-to and
Right.
helpful tips for setting up alerts. We could certainly do
Yeah,
that.
that would be cool.
Mhm. So just moving along in the presentation here, we'll go ahead and also, I believe, bring that demonstration to the full board as well. So we'll be reporting on that again. And just to provide a portal update. So normally we see anywhere between 40 to 60 new users every month that are adding in, or new accounts that are added within the customer portal. We had 140 just this past month. So kind of a big uptick, larger than usual uptick for us as far as engagement is concerned. And like I said, we're still continuing to collaborate and engage with Tyler to improve the customer interface and then tailor the product a little bit more to CCWD and our customer base.
Was there a difference? People sign up for the billing and then to go further, they go to the smart portal?
There's
or-
not anything else required. So this is just, all this is measuring is like brand new accounts where people are going in and registering for the very first time.
Okay, and how many do we have altogether registered?
Right now
Up
we have,
140.
what is that? 8,000.
That's wonderful.
813.
Nice. Out of potentially 13 some odd. I guess with the
That's
sewer.
So we'll continue to monitor that. And this is also another element that I'm working with Tyler on to get a little bit more of if they can, a drill down of how many duplicate accounts do we have? Like, do we have a tenant account that's been made for one location and a landlord account that's been made? So I'm trying to work with Tyler to see how we might be able to drill down a little bit further and get a true representation of how many unique online accounts we have. And then again, for purposes of trying to engage, and really bolster our online portal engagement, we have a jumping off point, and then we can measure appropriately after that.
On this program that we're using, the reporting section for like the back office or whatever it's called, do you find that it's pretty user friendly? Are you allowed to make different choices? Like, oh, I want a list of all the customers on such and such street, active customers, or all customers, whether they're active or not. Can you do stuff like that?
Not from what I see right now.
If you
And
wanted a report like that, you'd have to have Tyler build it.
I'd have to work with Tyler to see how I would be able to pull that out. Not something that they can't do. I mean, Tyler has made in all the years that I've worked with Tyler, if they're hearing enough about it, they can
They'll
make
do
the
it.
change on their side. It's just, they have to engage their production staff on that and see about incorporating that in as a new element to the back office side of things. And again, just continuing in our reporting of customer assistance here at CCWD. So our CAP program is still in full swing. We still have 39 open spots for water customers and 67 open spots for wastewater customers.
It's a lot of those.
It is. And customer service will be starting our program renewals again in just a couple months. So we do this annually, and we'll be coordinating with Kelly in External Affairs to really maybe coordinate, a social media push to try to engage folks to enroll here while we're going through the program renewal phase. As I reported last time, ADCA was able to open up the LIWAP program again. They were able to reallocate some funding from Tuolumne County over to Calaveras and Amador counties. And the program in and of itself right now, though, is still slated to end March 31st of this year. And so ADCA has requested from all of their agencies that are participating to have their customers submit applications no later than March 20th. That will give them plenty of time to make sure they have the documentation they need and can process the application accordingly and have the program pay out to the agency before the program ends. So so far, LIWAP has provided over $53,000 worth of assistance to CCWD customers. And if anybody has any questions, any customer is interested in either CAP or LIWAP, please contact customer service. We're happy to help you. We have all the information. We can direct you to our contacts over at ADCA if LIWAP is for you. And we're happy to answer any questions any of the customers have as far as either of these programs are concerned. And that's my update for today.
That was very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lots of good work going on.
Kelly, before you step down there, I wanted to make you aware that the sign in Copperopolis that 4x8 announcement about the radio read meters and the program that paid for it and everything. It has been up. Somebody came by and tore it down. I don't know whether that's our forces that did that. I would think that they would have hauled it off, but it's right across from the elementary school in Copperopolis.
Damon will do that.
Hmm?
Damon will take care of that.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you.
Yep, we'll get that taken care of. Yep.
All right.
There's usable lumber in it. You might want to go salvage it. So thank you very much, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
Okay. Kelly, you're up. Kelly R versus Kelly G.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Kelly.
So it's been a while. I think our last committee meeting was January 4th. A lot's happened since then.
Isn't that supposed to be relations? That's what I keep calling affairs.
No, he's the customer affairs manager.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is that what his thing is? External affairs manager?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Good job.
What's the date of the picture?
This was after the tour, so it's
Oh,
the nice time in Copper, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it looks pretty.
But that's just my opinion. Copper's always nice, but I think it's exceptionally nice this time of year when things are green.
Yeah.
Well, the video is supposed to play, but we can just move on then.
What?
that chicky.
clicking on the computer when IT is helping? I think it's in your head.
Yeah. Yeast maker.
Hit play again and then maybe just let it go.
Well, we'll just move on. So we are going to start with the communication survey that we put out. We put out this survey on January 22nd. I put it out internally first and gave our staff a chance to kind of field test it and put their input too. Their input's very important to me, and I was very proud of the fact that 37 of our staff took the time to fill out the survey. Got some excellent feedback, and again, I'm just really proud that they took the time to fill it out. I think their feedback and input is just as important as anybody's. And so then a few days later, on the 25th, I put it on our website. That a little bit more, as you see in the bar graph, maybe 3 more people submitted responses, and then it hit Facebook on the 26th. Same thing, not a huge, it still was kind of slowly gaining momentum. Nextdoor on the 29th, and then so on and so forth. What we ended up with is 124 responses. Through the social media engagement, it had 12,542 impressions. So
What are those?
basically views, and so basically there was, the way I see it, there was 12,542 opportunities for people to fill out the survey.
Okay.
And I did it a couple different formats, 2 different formats, not just the same. When I reposted it, I redesigned the image and whatnot it was still the same survey, but I tried to just, here it is again, just to encourage it.
How many
And-
questions?
10 questions, 8 multiple choice and 2 write-in. The questions on those were, is there any other agencies that you feel, we can learn from? And then just kind of one more open-ended question about anything you suggest we can improve in our communication strategy. So here's some of the answers. For the longest time, website and social media was the most preferred. It was towards the end of the survey that email kind of surpassed those other formats. So that's definitely something that I want to take seriously and look into more email communications and mass communications that way. As you can see, how do you rate our website? Those are the responses. And these are all, you couldn't finish a survey without at least filling out those first 8 questions. So essentially 124 people filled out this portion. Not everybody filled out the write-in. I didn't make that mandatory. Those 2, you could have still submitted your survey without filling out the written part or the typed in part. I apologize for the smaller bubbles there to the lower right there, but that's basically how, in your opinion, what is the most effective way for us to gather feedback? Surveys was the most, community meetings, board and committee meetings, that's the small print there, sorry about that, and then other. And with the other, there was a chance for people to type stuff in. So I do have that on the back end that I could share. Yes. Yeah.
And the other one was technical.
Community meetings.
Community.
Yeah, I mean, town halls, community
Town
meetings.
hall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so these next 2 questions, the one on the bottom, I wish I would have worded a little bit differently. Now reflecting on it, how often would you like to receive general updates? I think after seeing it, I guess that depends on the information. Some things might be daily, some things might be quarterly. So if I could do it again, I would rethink that question. But these are still the results. Same thing on the top. How would you like us to communicate long-term projects or infrastructure improvement that may impact your neighborhood? Those are the results with social media, and then website, and then town halls. Next is more social media focused. For the longest time, do you follow CCWD on social media platforms? For most of the survey, majority of people did follow us, and then it was towards the end that now the majority do not follow us. However, what I thought about that a lot, and what I found interesting is, as you can see, half the people that took the survey don't follow us, but yet they took the survey and they found us either through sharing or coming across their screen. So I was still pleased that I was able to reach those folks. I would encourage everyone to follow us. I think that's a nice way to get the notification or get whatever information quickly. However, that tells me that the information is still getting out there whether you follow us or not. So I was pleased with that outcome, even though I'd like to see more followers, but that's okay as well.
Let me jump in. It occurs to me if Kelly R said that there are 8,000 people that use the portal, is there a spot on there that you could put, you want to learn more about CCWD, click here? So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
well, a link to the survey or just in general. But
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I glossed right over it. The survey's still live. If you guys want, you can scan the QR code and still take it. It's still out there. Yeah, if you scan that, not on the website. No, well, yes, it is. It's with the original post of not the QR code, but the link. Yeah, so if you go to our website, it's been knocked down in the updates and news. It's a little bit further down, but it is there, the link. So back to the social media, this was, again, this survey was mainly for me to find out how some of the folks in the community would like us to communicate with them. I'm looking forward to doing more surveys, be it, customer satisfaction or whatnot, but I think this is a good first step. So I know, does somebody prefer Facebook over Instagram or Nextdoor? And so these are the results of that. Facebook is clearly the winner with Nextdoor, and then Instagram. Instagram is still something I'm toying with. You don't have the same linking functions with Instagram, but I still think Instagram could be a useful tool. I think I'd like to do more highlights and more of the fun stuff on Instagram, more of the updates and pertinent information on Facebook and Nextdoor and whatnot. Do you have any questions? Well, yeah, basically, the top three are visuals and infographics, a consistent newsletter, and videos and more podcasts. We've never done a podcast, but I wanted to feel that out. I think a podcast could be a very useful tool, and I hope hopefully in the future we can work towards something like that. It's too bad too. It plays, it's nice. I got some other videos. It's just trust me, they're nice. Yes, sir.
You need the meeting of there.
Yeah.
People online can't be able to get it recorded and it's not.
Nextdoor offers you the capability of tracking by geographic location. Do you have any results that tell you where our fans are located geographically?
I have not looked into that yet. There is what I utilize Nextdoor for. If for instance, we're Flushing in the Jennyland area, I do utilize the neighborhoods because I don't feel I need to blast Flushing to the whole district if we're doing it in certain neighborhoods. I've utilized Nextdoor for if there was a leak in Avery, I would just hit those neighborhoods just to try to notify those folks. So I have utilized some of those tools that Nextdoor has, and Nextdoor is a useful tool. I think it's an interesting one as well. I think it's an interesting platform. What's that? Yeah. So the Copper Cove tour, again, it was a beautiful day. It was last Wednesday, one of the more beautiful days in Copper, and I can't say enough about those guys down there. It was a great tour. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. The outreach leading up to it, there was about 8 or so folks that signed up for last year's tour that unfortunately got canceled. So I called them first, emailed them, tried to reach out to them, to give them first dibs because we felt kind of bad for canceling on them. I think it was last March. A few of them showed up, and then I opened it up on our website and social media. I hit Facebook, Twitter, Nextdoor. That reached 1,868 folks. 14 signed up, and we ended up with 10 members of the public in attendance, plus Russ, so I will call that 11. And leading up to the tour, the document on the left there, I put together with the help of Mr. Cardinal, very informative, a nice overview of the facility, you know, because if anyone went to that tour, you know, there's a lot of information, and Bill Cardinal does an excellent job of telling us all that wonderful information. But I wanted to give them a heads up before they came, not kind of like homework, like here's what you're about to learn, here's the facilities, maybe prepare them so when they came, they at least had some questions. Yeah. And on the right is a document that I put together back in January, just for some of the updates on the copper construction projects with the B tank and Clearwell. So I sent that to them as well. So with a nice little email saying, hey, thanks for signing up for the tour. Here's some information. Look forward to seeing you. So this is what I sent out to them.
The one that. So now it looks like the nice new one.
Tank B, it's down now. I mean, the redwood's completely down. No, they're gonna replace, it's gonna be where the footprint of where the
Still looks.
No, it's down.
redwood one is down. Yeah.
That picture. I mean, but Kelly, that picture reflects very badly on the district, the condition of our infrastructure.
Some, you know what, it looks worse than it really is. They started to peel off the roofing and stuff. It didn't look like that all the time. That was them starting to, you know, demo it. So it does look bad, but I don't know, but some might say those redwood tanks are beautiful. So I guess it's an opinion. Yeah. True. But we're fixing it. So it's great news. I think it's a wonderful thing.
It's a natural cooler, evaporative
Oh, we
cooler.
got some movement, kind of. It's kind of glitchy, but again, I can't say enough about those guys. Bill, Brett, and Thomas blew my mind. I mean, I've seen this facility, but it blew my mind again just to see it. I saw a lot of big eyes from the folks in the crowd. There was really good questions. There was really good dialogue. I think everybody really enjoyed it. After the tour, I did put out a brief survey. Again, I thanked everyone for showing up because it meant a lot to me that they showed up, and it meant a lot, you know, taking the staff's time and all that. 3 folks filled out the survey, so 3 out of 10, not horrible.
What about going to some of the high schools and seeing if you can get some kids from high school, do like every quarter, do a school tour? It would be
That would be
something to
great.
introduce them to.
Right. We have some discussions right now about that kind of stuff. In April, I was going to save this for my next report next month, but in April, we're signed up for On the Right Track, which is an event at Calaveras and Bret Hart. So we did it last year. It was great. Basically the seniors are given a real life scenario project. They've got to buy a home. They've got to hook up utilities. They're given these tasks. And so they'll come to our booth, and we've got to help them get hooked up with a meter.
Oh, nice.
Or one, I remember last year, one was starting a mechanic shop and they had to get a commercial meter. And so there was, you know, kind of threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
On that one, Kate Jesus was with me, and it was a really great event. We really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to doing that again in April.
Did they have to write a check?
No checks, no, and it was fun. Some of the kids were really into it. Of
Mhm.
course, some kids just wanted us to sign off their paper.
Right.
It's like, okay, let's move on. Or what do you have for free? Do you have any candy? You know, so, which we had some candy.
Well, you know, if you can get kids or even talk with the school and say, you know, we can handle 15 kids or whatever, because once they see it and you could tell them about the opportunity for being a worker, you know, water, sewer.
Yeah,
And just like me when I moved here,
Yeah.
I took advantage that I turned my water on. It was always there.
yeah. Those,
So-
those are definitely conversations we're currently having. We've had several, even today, we talked about it a little bit. So
Cool.
it's on our radar, and we
Good.
don't really know how that looks yet, but it's certainly on our radar. So some of the other recent outreach lately, again, there's just that beautiful picture, that the creek at the beginning, as you can see, it was right next to the plant. So too bad it doesn't,
Is this a drone that
It
we
is.
have?
yeah,
Who runs it?
I run that drone.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So some of the recent outreach we've done since the last time we met, again, is that ATCA and LIWAP, I keep an eye on their social media feeds all the time, and they just posted something last week saying, if you live in Calaveras County, we can still help you. And so once I see that, I definitely share it to our feed and try to get that exposure out. And you don't see my post, but I'm also encouraging even if you're receiving that and you don't need that service, maybe you share it to somebody who does, or tell your neighbor, or tell someone who might be able to benefit from it. We are really trying to encourage that, and we'd like to see our CAP program full.
Right. I believe there's more senior citizens that don't use the website for several reasons. So when you have stuff like that ACCAP, if that's a paperwork or something, if you could print those, and at the board meetings, you could say, hey, board members, if you have an opportunity, because I would drop mine off the senior center, and post it on our board, just letting people know that perhaps need it, but have no idea it's there.
That's it. I think you just turn on the back. They should be ready to go. Oh, yeah, on the.
Yeah, but if there's
Very good.
something that we could help distribute, that might be nice. Just, hey, if anybody, we have these, if anybody could use them to distribute, because I would. If you wouldn't mind at a meeting, if there's something new that just came up, or remind us, we have these here, because we walk in and then we walk out. So
Okay.
I will try and remember to do that, but
Okay.
if you guys could help us too, I know I would do some in my district.
We can do that for the CAP program as well.
Mhm.
Okay.
Again, it's a repeat, but there's that Copper Cove construction. This one was specific to a date. I think it was January 11th is when I pushed that out, put it on our website, put it on Facebook. I put that one on Copper specific next door, just to let the folks know what was going on. And again, the flushing, Jenny Lynn started flushing back January 8th, I believe. And then this one is recently, Ebbets Pass started, and West Point's going to be flushing here pretty soon. So when the guys tell me they're going to start flushing, I'll push this out on our social media. I'll put a link on our website, also kind of explaining some of the benefits of flushing, why we're doing it and whatnot, just to try to educate the community. So some past, current, and future staff recognition. As we know, Charles Palmer retired, 20-year engineer. I think that was he had a fantastic career here, did a lot of great things for the district. We had a wonderful ceremony for him, and I also pushed that out on our website and social media too, as some recognition. Of course, on the far right there, I'm not sure if you guys know, but Mr. John Coleman will be joining us as Water Resources, and I think that's going to be
When is that? When
Fantastic.
does he start? March something?
March 18th.
Good.
And so we pushed that out too, and that got a lot of really great feedback on social media, on website. He's obviously very, very well known in the water industry and very well respected. And I think he's going to bring a tremendous amount of knowledge and expertise to this organization. I think we're all really looking forward to it. And again, in the middle, on January 17th was Customer Service Appreciation Day. So I think that's fantastic. I think what our customer service does on a daily basis deserves more than just a day. So I appreciate them, and I think we all do. And so I pushed this out on our website and social media as well. So definitely hats off to the crew up there, that they deserve a round of applause for sure. So this was that grant. We reported on this not too long ago. This was that grant that we received for some standby generators through the Cal OES Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. I pushed this out, and this got a ton of
That's good.
thumbs up and likes and hearts and good comments and all the things. I think people were really pleased with this kind of news. I think this is a really, really good program, and it's a great thing to celebrate. So putting this out got a lot of feedback and a lot of
Pay the
shares.
customers a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a fantastic, it's great. It's all around just great. So this is just, we don't need to go through the whole entire grant process. We talked about this one already, but this was just more of this is what I put out. So
Nice.
just so you guys know, if you weren't aware, but you could find
Looks
this
good.
on our website and social media. So some upcoming outreach items for me and us as a district is in summer of 2024, we're going to be doing 2 of the lift stations in Poker Flat. And so we met with the president of the homeowners association the other day, really good meeting, just trying to talk about the impacts because we're going to be in there during the summer.
Was that,
Where's that map?
was
That was the
it, was it,
GM.
Oh, right there.
I'll show you a map
Yeah,
right there.
It was the general manager, not the.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
Yep. no worries.
And so I'm working on something right now. I didn't have it ready for today, and it's called the story map through Esri, and it's basically it'll have the maps like this, and it's nice because you can scroll through it, and as you're scrolling through the information, the map will like pop up and kind of be more engaging. Of like this is the area that we're working out right now, and then but that's not quite ready to show. So here's just a basic static map showing where these impacts are going to be. So. Starting at lift station 6, I think is that lower one, and that's going to be starting April 22nd through the 25th. And then lift station 8 is July 22nd through the 15th. So as we're in there, when we get closer to those dates, we're going to be doing a lot more outreach. The gentleman we met with, his name was Brian, I believe. Right?
Yeah, Brian.
He has the ability to email blast the folks in that area. So we're gonna be working with him with this outreach, and he'll have that ability to really fine tune that email blast to the folks in that area. I was talking with Jared, we might even, if they provide us some potential routes that they'd rather people take, like suggested routes, like put some arrows on the map to show, hey, avoid this area.
Detours or what?
Yeah, but so that's still to come, and that's something I'm working on. West Point Filter Project, we're shooting for a ribbon cutting in April. So there's your map again, kind of covers it up, but try to add some maps. But
You know what I'm talking about.
you know where West Point is. I know, we do need a big map there. I agree 100%. So we don't have a date yet, but we are going to be shooting for April for that. And I certainly have not forgotten about the Redwood tanks. Those are in, though that project is finished, and we probably should have had a ribbon cutting already, but we've discussed that it was in the heart of winter time and maybe it wasn't the best. So I'm still trying to keep that alive, maybe do some digital stuff.
Cool.
Right now, this is a real quick video. You're going to see a tank be taken down and built in about a minute.
That's awesome though.
Again, the recent project, most recent one, we replaced 6 Redwood tanks with 5 glass lined steel tanks. But since 2017, we've done a total of 7 tanks that are now steel tanks. There's one more Redwood tank up on the pass, but I think that's pretty fantastic. And that's what each of those dots are. The 2 up there that are circled red, those are the ones that were completed in 2017.
These tanks are fireproof?
I'd say highly fire resistant, but I don't know what they do in a roaring blaze. I don't know. Did the manufacturer give us any specs on it?
It's steel.
But I would think we're in a lot better shape.
Quickly than.
Yeah. So again, it was pretty neat. I'm not sure if you saw.
Has a lower melting temperature than record.
Yeah.
Yes.
Later on, I don't know if you saw it, but when they build it from the roof, they build the roof first and it lifts.
Oh, and then they
So
start
it
doing
keeps on
that.
jacking up. So yeah, you'll see it here in a second. It's fascinating how they do that.
Great video.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe we'll give it one more time, if you guys don't mind.
No, that's pretty cool. We see them setting out those little triangular things too. Triangular.
Guys work fast.
Yeah.
it's remarkable they put the roof on when it's
There
on the
it is.
ground.
Yeah. Interesting.
So right, it's gonna be.
Now they're gonna start. There it goes.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so this particular tank, this is Heather Tank in Forest Meadows. Now moving on to Calaveras Conserves. I've been meeting with Calaveras Conserves quite a bit lately. We are really trying to, I don't know if I want to use the word rebrand, but we want to stay relevant, but we don't want to only be relevant during times of drought and times of conservation. We certainly think that conservation's a valuable tool, but one of the other things we've talked about is just educating on Calaveras County specific water resources. What's highlighted in red there is essentially, we're part of 3 different watersheds, actually 5, because 2 other little San Joaquin ones creep in on the bottom, but we always say, we get our water from 3 watersheds, but what you see there is really what the water agencies of Calaveras County get from those watersheds. So the Stanislaus watershed's huge, but our portion is smaller. So what we were thinking about doing videos that we can show in schools, where your water comes from, starting at the top of the watershed, going through the watershed, going through the infrastructure, showing up at your house, to teach Calaveras County specific. And again, we're partnering with many of the agencies in Calaveras, and I think it'd be a really good thing. So again, our outreach beyond drought messaging, we are working on maybe doing a new website or at least some new digital presence for that education. And I really want to utilize this group for, as we are going to be moving on into some of this water use efficiency standards, to have a united front. I mean, CCWD is the only urban water agency in Calaveras that will really be currently bound by these new rules. So I think it's nice to have a united front for educating. And I think that'll, in a way, help Calaveras County Water District by having this partnership. So this is something this is a little project that I put together because I was curious about where some of our current communication and outreach, where that fits in with a strategic plan. And so I put this together, and the comment on the left, I believe very much, every action we take every day is a step along the path of our strategic plan shaping the future we envision and with purpose and intention. So I look at that lower graph as kind of the pulse of what our outreach and communication has had with that strategic plan. So every time, even this meeting we're having right now, it fits in so many different aspects of the strategic plan. Virtually everything, at least a component of it. So, today's meeting and the reports that Kelly has presented, the reports that I presented over some of the things we've done over the last month or two, in my opinion, fits many of those aspects. And so what I created a spreadsheet that I just tally that. So if today we communicated on LIWAP or on watershed health, that's kind of a tick towards some of our objectives and our bigger goals in the strategic plan. So, and it's just, I think it's an interesting way to look at it. I only went back to about October because it turned out to be a very, very large task. But if I was to continue to go back and fill out, what we did, some of the tasks I did on water resources, or some of the other tasks that we did outreach during the summer, that pulse, that graph would change, because I think every day we are doing things that are in line with the strategic plan.
Will you go back to one of the objectives for me?
Absolutely.
All right, so build trust and demonstrate value to customers with responsive service and positive experiences. So how do we know if we've attained that? Well, I mean, I see that we're doing all the good work, but how do we get to a point where we know, what is our goal on that? How do we get there to know we're doing it? Is it because of what the customers are saying in our surveys, or, how do we know we've reached that goal? I mean, it's going to be ongoing throughout the life of CCWD, but how do we know we're okay? You know what I'm saying? I don't know exactly what to say, but how do we know we're there?
Right. And that's a great question. And I don't think we'll ever complete it. I think that's an ongoing. There's going to be new folks that move to the community. There's going to be, it's a living, breathing document.
Mhm.
And I think we'll always want to build trust. I don't look at it like, oh, we've built trust. Well, we can just erase that now. We're done.
Well, like I
So
said, I don't want to erase it. I said it's
Right.
going to be with CCWD, but how do we know that the customers trust us? How do we know that?
Right.
That's
Well-
what how do we know?
That's a great
question.
It is a great question. And I think some of the stuff we're doing, it may take time. I think some of the responses we see in surveys, engagement in meetings like this. I mean, I think this is a fantastic meeting to where we can
So I
start.
agree.
I think it's
great meeting.
starting, and I think it is happening. So
Well, I think the work you guys are doing are fantastic, But again, like my question, how do we know that they trust us now? It's just, so I mean, how do we do that? I don't have the answer,
yeah,
Town,
I
town hall.
town hall, I mean, I think again, some of the responses from the surveys, I do think we can have different opinions on likes on Facebook or whatnot, but I think that, for instance, the positive feedback I got from that grant outreach was fantastic. That might not be quantifiable and we can say, okay, but seeing it, I know it's making a difference and it's
Oh,
making an
absolutely.
impact. And I do think that some of the likes that our staff give, I actually commend that. I think that's a win and I think it's wonderful. Again, these folks are members of the community. Many of them are ratepayers. They're proud of the work they do. When I see our staff liking things, I think of 3 different objectives in this enduring organization, and I think it'd be better if I just read them.
Mhm.
Develop a district that our customers value and our board and staff are proud to serve through a recognizable and respected brand. Value the workforce that enables us to deliver on the strategic plan goals and objectives and uphold the district core values. Provide transparency by communicating frequently and broadly to unite our workforce and execute a living strategic plan through work that matters.
That's wonderful.
So if I put out, let's say, if I push out something on social media about the ops report, so many of our staff are involved in that ops report. They work in here day and night to make that thing pop and make that thing as amazing as it is. And if they like it and they respond to it, that's awesome.
Totally.
I think it's
totally agree.
amazing, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud to see that our staff is proud. And I think that's infectious. Again, they are the community too. They're in the community. And so I think it's a good thing. And
Oh, I
I
agree.
think, and that's,
I totally agree
Yeah.
with you, Kelly. You guys are all doing amazing. And, you know, when I first started on this board, it wasn't like that. So I see the difference and, I'm proud of that. But I think, you know, how, like, just the one objective that I said about the customer trust, how do we know we've managed that? You know, we have the employees liking and maybe customers will end up doing that. I think the surveys are really important. I'm not minimizing what you guys are doing because we've come a long way since I've been here. I'm more proud than I was when I first started here. So, you know, it's a good thing and it's always going to be, it's a living document forever. But there's certain things that we have to figure out how do we know when we're there, and it will be ongoing. But at what point are we gonna, let's say that out of 100 customers, as long as we have 80% of them happy, we're good, you know, that kind of stuff. And this is, you know, we don't have the answer today. And I think we're going in the right direction with everything all staff is doing.
right.
And, you know, when I've gone on the tours, I see how proud operations staff is and some of the other managers and people here. But, you know, being out in the field, it is really awesome to see how knowledgeable they are and the dedication. You know, the one tour when, not the Butte Fire, but the one after that over there in Amador, you know, in the river there that came up. And he was telling me him and his wife, it was July 4th and they're at the parade. And he says, and he smells the smoke and he sees, and he goes, babe, I gotta go check on the plant. I mean, that's huge dedication.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think they portray that with the customers. And I think the tours of all of our plants and what we do are extremely important to reach, our customers, and, you know, showing them everything that we're doing is great. I just think, you know,
I think it's some great points and it's a great question too. Trust in particular is a difficult one to measure and track, but it's something we need to work on. And since we're on the strategic plan a little bit, I think one of the things that we've been wanting to get to is kind of a check-in on where we are, and since we're a little bit more than halfway through now, I think. And we've kicked around different ways to do that, whether we bring John and Ellen back, the consultants that helped us develop it, or not. But I think what I'm leaning towards right now, but I'd appreciate your feedback, is almost half of the management team has turned over since then, even though it was only a couple of years ago. And especially when John starts in a few weeks. the newer members of the management team who weren't involved in the development of the strategic plan, all bring diverse backgrounds and are incredibly talented individuals. So instead of bringing a consultant back in, my thought right now is we ask those four, I think it's four, the Kellys, Mark, and it'll be John Coleman. And, you know, kind of create a little task force among the management team for them to give us a report card, give us a check-in, give us an assessment, and then wrestle with things like the question you just raised of, well, that's a difficult one to measure and track, but let's work on it. Let's figure out ways to, there are indicators that we could use. You know, I think for some of us, I think a lot of our staff have been in the community for a long time. And so, you know, getting direct feedback from, you know, our community members is something that we can rely on. You know, if we're losing trust, we'll hear it. But that's not necessarily helpful. And when we're going, you know, when we want to report out on making progress towards that objective,
Well,
we need something that's easier to define. So I think that's something that we'll ask that task force to give us a report card and to not, you know, not hold back where there's going to be room for improvement, and give them a, you know, the you know, the discretion, not only the discretion, the expectation that they'll pull us on it where we fall short, and where we need to make more progress. And then also, you know, looking at those tougher ones to measure and work on ways to do it.
Well, I wouldn't agree to having a consultant come back, because when we did that, it's not easy, but they've done all the groundwork for us. I think we just need to look at our objectives and go through them as a workshop. So all of us sitting here can say, oh man, we got to change that, or we're doing good, or whatever. I wouldn't want a consultant coming back in at this point. I think we could do something.
Yeah,
and
I think
just,
we can do that.
you know, because we're all going to know, are we doing good in these objectives? And when, you know, Francisco brought those objectives up, it's like, oh yeah, we do have those, don't we? So we need to review them. I think we should be looking at them, maybe not quarterly, but every 6 months. Just one item on our board meeting, hey, let's review customer service objectives or operations or whatever they're broken down, you know, and look at those on a regular basis to keep us all facing forward as that same goal, you know, because it's not just staff, it's us as well, right? You know, board members. So I think your idea is good, and then bring that here and let's do a workshop and hear where we need to improve.
Sounds good.
Okay, I want to draw attention to the lateness of the hour here. There are other things we need to talk about here, but Kelly, are you through? You said thank you. So
Sure, yeah, thank you very much.
Great presentation,
Any
both of you
questions?
guys.
okay,
Behind you.
I agree with what you just mentioned. I just it makes me a little fearful that if John Coleman takes it on, he may not stay. So.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I wouldn't worry about that. I think I'm optimistic he'll stick around, but I would value all of those newer members of the management team, all of their insight on that. You know, what could we have done better even in developing the plan as well? Not just how are we doing with the plan, but what did we miss? What could we have done better?
Hey, Francisco, you have a comment?
Before you spend way too much time reworking the strategic plan, I might ask you to look up the technology that is referred to as setting SMART goals. SMART being an acronym for setting specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound goals. That facilitates answering the kinds of questions that Cindy asked. How do we gauge trust? Well, if you're not specific, you don't set numbers and you don't set deadlines, any answer you get is useless. It's just fantasy. There seems to be a bit of resistance to my commentary about employees commenting on their own performance. And I don't disagree that they have a right to discuss it and comment on it, but I've noticed the culture of this organization avoiding being very direct and honest and forthcoming. And there's a lot of community jibber jabber, because that's all I can attribute it to, that employees share with community members about the kinds of things that they're not satisfied with, that they're not happy with, that they think is ridiculous, but they don't feel comfortable sharing it with their management. That concerns me as a ratepayer. And it concerns me when I hear, well, we should be able to say and be proud of, yes, you should be. But you also should be open to the fact that there are some folks that work with you that don't necessarily agree, but are afraid to speak up because of consequences. So in terms of the linkage to the strategic plan, I think it's great that Kelly went through and mapped it. I think the board needs to go through and say, really, what are the goals that we achieve? What numerical targets that we set, that we have on people's appraisals, that we're appraising them on? If none of that exists, or very few of it exists, very few artifacts that have numbers with due dates and actuals to projected, then it's fantasy land. And you can continue to play that game as long as the ratepayers put up with it. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to take a 5-minute break and then we'll reconvene down the floor. Back in the room. Next item on the agenda is the general manager comments. So Michael, can you? Well, we just talked about that. Well, I know, but the performance tracking workshop wasn't what you were talking about, the assessment of the, okay. That's what. I apologize. I jumped ahead.
Hello, everybody. So anyhow, what I was saying is the elephant in the room for me is our rate study and the customer unhappiness with that. And a couple other things came up from it. Communication. I see that you guys have done an excellent job in improving. I think those presentations today were really, really good. Just wonderful. My comment I made about the trust thing, you know, again, how do we measure that? So what I'd like to, I want to like step back and you know, we've heard from these gentlemen and I'd like to hear more, but I want to go back and almost start from the beginning. The survey was amazing, but I would like to do another survey that we, with our customer input, everybody sitting here at the table, I want to have input, and we as a group have a consensus of what the next survey should be. I believe the goal for me is customer satisfaction, right? You know, and what are the problems? What does the ratepayer, the customers, the public, I don't know what we're calling them exactly. Where do they think we're doing really good? Where do they think we're not doing good? Where's our need for improvement? Some basic stuff like that. And then the other thing is I'm not a fan of social media. I get the next door and you get, you know, hundreds of these things and you look at them real quick and, you know, select all, delete at once. And not everybody can get social media. However, digital is the way to go, some way, somehow. And I believe that in the discussion today, we should also come up with a recommendation to the board. If we don't already have one, I believe we need some kind of a email blast type program, whether it's MailChimp or Constant Contact, something like that. If we don't have one, because we need to reach everybody in an email. Not everybody wants to do social media. Not everybody wants to go on the website. I mean, my internet at home is sketchy at best, but you know, all my emails are right here. And I think a lot of people do have that, not everybody. So my goals today would be, let's create a new survey to find out what the customers want us to do. I know that the customers are saying we want to set goals so we can track, you know, quantify stuff. And I think we'll get there, but let's decide what we're going to track right now. And I think this survey might be helpful. I want to, like I said, get an email, a blast type thing. Do we have one now, or is it just through the portal?
Right now, what we have available as far as email is concerned is pertaining directly to the Tyler CIS system. So again, I think I've been pretty forthcoming with saying we are utilizing those notifications, but for smaller campaigns, because our contact information for customers needs to be updated. So we need to come up with a plan for updating, you know, how do we update that information? And then, you know, utilize that as a mechanism for engagement.
Right.
But there's other, I mean, there's other options.
Just real quick, we also can't force people to use our emails because some people don't want those emails. And so I think we have pretty good database, but it's never going to be all of our customers that we can just hit with.
I agree. However, with a program like MailChimp and Constant Contact, you can do these personalized emails. You can scale them and you can target to whoever, but you can also get people to sign up for those emails. You would have to. We can't just do that. So we do have a way to do that. I think starting with our portal, starting with anyhow, we can reach these people. We have how many people signed up on the portal? Did you say 8,000 some odd? And how many customers do we have? That's between sewer and water? Right. Right. Do the sewer customers use the portal? Okay. But do they? Do they? So either way, I don't want, in my opinion, these are my thoughts, okay? I mean, just because I'm wanting this doesn't mean that's what the group is going to agree on, But I want to reach out to people that aren't even our customers that are here in Calaveras County that can maybe be affected, whether it's UPUD or something like that. I would like to see, I would like to see CCWD have this big database of people that want to hear what we're doing, because perhaps we're a leader in the water industry here in Calaveras County. I kind of think we are. Exactly. So I want to, how much are these email blasts? I did a little bit of looking around, but perhaps at, the March meeting, either if you can't do it, I would certainly be happy to come up with some information. Here's some options, here's the cost, and bring it to the board for approval if that's what staff feels would work for them. I've used them. They're not hard. I think you still want to use the portal for certain things that are more, bill related and leak related. But I think this would be a great relationship tool for you, Kelly. And
I guess my question would be, is there limitations in what we can do with Tyler? Because we can already do email blasts to those customers, right? So is there limitations?
How do you send it to me?
How do you sign up?
No, because I'm not a CCWD customer.
Right. So that's always.
So that's the
what I was trying to
limitation.
refer to before, is the challenge
Yeah.
of getting people to know.
Okay, well, I can work on that, and you could even put something on the website, you want to hear from us, we'd like to get your email. We won't send them too often, and some of these have surveys built in. I know Nextdoor has a survey, but again, it's not always about social media, especially with everything going on. I don't like using social media, but I will sign up for certain emails. I mean, maybe you're going to have a tour, so you want to set it up to everybody in the area. They may not be a customer. In my district, we have very minimal customers, but a lot of people living in the area. Wouldn't that be neat to see what that West Point sewer treatment plant is all about, or the water treatment plant? So I'd like to make it be able to reach more than just whoever signed up for our portal. So thoughts? Yeah.
So subscribe to the newsletter, and also subscribe to engineering updates, legal affairs updates, check this out. And it becomes, he controls the distribution system rather than the distribution system controls you guys, which is typically MailChimp and all those other guys. They have set parameters. If you start letting people subscribe to things that they already do, for example, I subscribe to the agendas. Now it's a different thing. You subscribe to this engineering report, subscribe to the schedule or a podcast, etc. Gives the customer total control of what they get.
Yes. And so what programs can we use with that?
Well, yeah, and one thing we have, the survey made it clear, you're not the only one who thinks email is the way to go. It clearly took the lead, and in several of the comments, several people really liked PG&E's outreach and as far as texting and email.
Yeah.
So that it's not uncommon, and it caught my eye, and it's something we're looking at. We're looking at also upgrading our website And the website that we're looking at and the program has that ability. And Dylan and I have looked as well. We've looked into MailChimp. I mean, they have it, but there's certain parameters too. They have to be able to simply unsubscribe.
Unsubscribe, yeah.
So there's certain rules, which those all the top ones have. But what we're looking at is if we can build this website that has these tools integrated into it, where it's more of a one-stop shop. It handles our website traffic. It handles email blasts. It handles all that. I think that would be ideal. And we are working on that currently. But the survey made it clear that email is the preferred way for folks to
Perfect.
get the information. So we took notice. After
Okay,
Suggested smartphone, have email functionality, any customer, no later than no later than June 1st of 2024 would be something that is specific, achievable, measurable, all of those things. And you could say, click, it's on. There's no dispute. There it is. There's no opinions. There it is. You can do those things. But to just say, we're going to communicate better, that we're finding that in another effort with working with Calaveras Consolidated Fire District, where we help them put together a strategic plan, and the community says, well, those are nice, but how do you measure? How do you know we're going to do that? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's a common concern that to say one thing and not be able to back it up, facts, figures, et cetera, that erodes your trust.
right. And I think we'll get there. I'm just trying to, in my opinion, get another mode of communication with others that aren't using our portal, because not everybody will do that. So,
External relations committee.
Yeah, that'd be great. We've had several demos from them. I think it's fantastic. And I think you guys, anybody sees this demo, there's a few folks in here that have went through it and we're all very impressed. And I think,
so will you make sure on that it's mobile friendly?
oh,
Cell phone, because I do most of my emails
Well,
and
what-
stuff that way.
what's great about what we're looking into also is I don't know if sponsor is the right word, but CSDA supports this. I mean, it's built for special districts,
Perfect.
several
Oh,
other
I know Streamline. Yeah,
streamline. It's
that's right.
fantastic. And I think
Yeah, I think MSD just went to it as well.
they did. And several special districts use it and they use it for a reason. And I think it would be a very valuable tool
So-
for us.
How long will it take and when can we start using the emails? Because one of the other, it's a complaint that I have since, and I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying we move slowly, in our board meetings, right? So we started this in September and we're already in February and we're finally sitting well, that's not true. I'm finally sitting at the table, able to talk to everybody about it. I haven't been part of this meeting, but I think we need to move a little quicker if we can. So with Streamline, we won't be able to use that email function until we get the
Well, we have to
website.
decide to do it first. in this
Well, I
conference.
understand that. I understand
That'll
that.
be great.
But I
Well-
want it, how long will it take to get it done? Kelly,
90
once it's
days.
approved?
I
3
spoke with them.
months.
So once we sign up, there's going to be a few weeks to work with the company. We start talking about what we want to port over. We don't want to port everything over. That's been some of the problems with our website. It's got a lot of stuff
Gotcha.
deep in the dark ends of it that we're tracking down slowly.
Yeah.
And so we want to be systematic. We don't want to port stuff over that's irrelevant because some people might find that in search functions. So it would take a few weeks for that portion. And then they said approximately 90 days to have it functional.
Okay, so March, April, May, so we could say, July 1, we could have that as a target date to start our email program with Streamline. In the time being, we could use Nextdoor, which I think was pretty high. I do have that on mine here. And they also have surveys, I believe. So we could use that on top of the portal to distribute surveys. I think the survey is the other thing. I think the email blast and the surveys are number one for me to get out and start. What is it that we're going to be asking the customers? How does anybody else feel?
Personally, I feel like we need to give the customer some hope that there's some break relief down in your report. That's what I keep hearing. Gotta find a way. And I know the engineering department is working on getting grants identified. I know that takes a few days to kick in. But that's the biggest thing that we could do is find a way to perhaps look at communicating how we're going to get to reduce rate years 3, 4, and 5. Perhaps looking at the depth ratio that we're shooting for.
Right.
Might be a little stretch goal. Or maybe we start.
I'm wondering if we should look at that at the finance committee,
Right.
because all the numbers are there and maybe we can identify, because I think that is also on my list of want to accomplish. And that would be tracking. We did the rate increase because we had to make sure the operations was running in the black. We had to bring down our debt ratio and we had to fund CIP. So we kind of have that information, but I'd like to be able to track, and we don't have enough time involved yet, in my opinion. But I'd like to say in a quarterly basis, okay, our goal for CIP is this much money based on rates. Here's where we're at, you know, for the fiscal year or whatever, and so forth. We have those numbers. We just don't have the format yet, how to report it. And maybe we could figure that in the finance committee.
I think that is a better venue for that discussion. We will be benchmarking back to the cost of service study during budget.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting a little bit far afield here, but just to set expectations, I think it's important to remember that the 5-year rate schedule adopted did not fund our 5 cost projection.
However,
So
the customer still got a huge increase.
So it did not fund, especially in those last few years. The message from the board was, we understand that it doesn't fund those last 2 years. And direction challenge to staff is to go find additional funds to meet our needs. So going out and, you know, we're going to, as always, do everything we can to go out and find additional sources of funding. But the initial gap that we have to close is with the implementing the full 5-year rate schedule, closing the gap to what we actually needed. And then if we can get beyond that, hopefully potentially providing some relief. But I think we should be very cautious about forecasting to customers that there's, you know, going to be anything less than what the rate schedule is until we know that that's.
But
I think we'll just be setting ourselves up for disappointment if we create that expectation.
That's why I'm rating along early, because it's extremely difficult to develop that trust that we're rooting to. And we can't trace the revenues to the accounts that affect the whole cost of service thing. So for example, several types of expenditures were grouped together to decide how much goes to the fixed rate, how much goes to the variable rate. And those cost components, I've seen the board move them around because expediencies or different conditions came up, et cetera. It moves money from places where if that money had been moved during the calculation, that number would be different and the rate would be different. So that's why early on I was insisting that there is a tight linkage between what the rates are supposed to cover, these costs that are supposed to deliver the services. Now, if you start messing with these costs because we need to move here, move there, then all the calculations that went into that rate determination are bogus. And that's my concern, is that we were told it takes this amount of money this year to support that rate. And this amount of money is necessary to cover all of the costs that we're going to incur. And so you tie those 5 years together, that's supposed to hang tight. Now, we've had openings that didn't require salaries because we were looking for people. We've got one guy that's reporting mid-March who's been funded since day one because the water resources manager position, et cetera, et cetera. Those monies are then moved around, but those monies were used to establish the algorithm that said that's the bogey we need to hit to cover all costs. And that's where I'm getting really concerned about, well, some of the commentary I got, well, they say one thing and then they do another. I said, no, they don't. Yeah, they do. Just try, it's like out there in the community that they've experienced years and years. Well, they said they were going to do X, Y, and Z, and then they turned it into Y. You might have had perfectly good reasons and the engineers all told you, et cetera, but the community disconnected and said, wait a minute, they're just BS and they're just doing whatever they want, whenever they want. And that's what I'm trying to fight with in terms of if I've got data, then, argue with the data. But when I've got nothing but this person's opinion of what happened and that person's opinion of what happened, we're lost. We can't make progress. We can't come together and say, this is where we really are and this is where we really want to go. Right now, I don't know where we are. You all have dealt with all the numbers much more than I have. And so you can figure this account goes there, that. From an outsider's perspective, despite reading all of those, it's hard to figure out, are we getting enough in our savings to meet the debt ratio? Well, I was told you can't calculate the debt ratio midstream. Oh, yes, you can. Should be able to at least, finger in the air, get close. But without data being available, easily understood, the trust factor goes straight to the ground. It's like, well, what can you trust if you can't even get real, reliable numbers? So the quicker we can get there, and follow it without spending every waking moment poring over long reports, I think the easier it is to rebuild the trust and say, these folks are doing everything in their power to make our lives easy, our water safe, and our septic systems and totally reliable. Without a doubt, without a question. It's like a Mercedes-Benz. You can rely on it. Right now, we're not there.
So that's what I want to say. I just feel that I have a hard time. I can see how much is coming in, but I can't say where it's supposed to be going. I see the stuff. I see the numbers moved in different areas, but are we meeting those goals? And we should do it, annually. We know we had a 22% or 18, whatever it was the first year. So with our first year spending, because there was expenses on those, just like there were income. So how come we're not looking at that and pulling out some of the combination of items that you talked about? And I think we should be doing that in finance.
Well, somebody.
But
We do, and we are. I mean, especially this first year budget closely tracks the first year rate study. But the rate study, the rate schedule is based on projections. Those projections are going to change. We know that for sure. We don't tie the budget directly to the projections that were in the rate study. You couldn't possibly go out 5 years, 2 years, and operate that. So those are based on projections that the expense projections will change. Revenue projections.
And that's in the operations budget. And
And
so,
the CIP even probably more so.
yeah,
It's already changed.
exactly.
It is all-
So,
okay, right. So that's not unexpected. We know that that's the nature
So-
of this.
But there's no going back and going, well, that would have affected that rate by 2 percentage points less.
Not necessarily, but we do go every year, and if there's an opportunity, if we can construct a budget in a way that doesn't need the full rate increase for the following year, we will do that. Yes, we will, absolutely.
Let's hope so, because that's the only hope we got out there.
This board has done that in the past.
Well,
They have had opportunities to implement rate increases that they chose not to implement.
I'm asking that they formally start to look at each and every opportunity. Because, that's what the measurement is all about. That's what performance metrics are all about. That's to say, you don't want to go over here and mess around with this because it affects all this and affects all that. And you're going to triple the expense if you tweak it this way versus you can only maybe increase it 5% if you tweak it that way. But right now, I have no idea how to make recommendations on what to consider because I don't know what the trends are. I see the operations report. I don't know if it's trending up, trending down, trending sideways. Is it taking a much more expensive crew to fix these types of problems? Is it taking longer? Is it taking shorter? Are we losing a lot more revenue because the leaks are bigger? All of those questions would affect my decision is, instead of hiring that water resource manager right now, I gotta add 15 more crew because we're literally losing our shirt on those leaks. I don't know. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
I mean, I think it would be very difficult to, and I think we would run the risk of oversimplifying if we were to try to distill that level of, or create that level of specificity in a model. Oh. Those discussions happen. We have those discussions a lot internally, and then we also, have those discussions at the different committees and in the board meetings, especially as you'll see when we go through budget development. We're constantly wrestling with those things. But it's not a simple equation necessarily, and so that means it's also not easy to necessarily build a model where it can be that precise of here, let's take two different options that we have and run them through the model and see what cost comes out at the end. It's a more complex operation.
For us to share.
Thank you. Well, I would like to back up a little bit. And I think we're getting a little bit into the weeds here on some details. And I want to better understand what the objective of this workshop should or could be. Looking at the strategic plan, a lot of very interesting goals and objectives outlined in the document. But I want to go back to Francisco's point about relief for the ratepayers. And he referenced the strategic plan. I was leading the effort for the strategic plan or at least the moderator. I won't say leading the effort. I was involved for the fire district. And in all my years in developing strategic plans in the private sector, we always had a SWOT analysis as part of that strategic plan. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And that's missing from this document. And I think it's an important exercise, whether you put it into the document or not is not relevant. But what's important about doing that is it forces an organization like this to really step back and take an honest look at themselves and be analytical about what they're doing, not just how they're perceived, but when you talk about the weaknesses and the threats to the organization, and weaknesses are internal things, right? That things that you can control to some extent, operational costs and things like that. Threats are external things, macroeconomic, inflation, wildfire mitigation, climate change, et cetera. So those are things that are relatively outside of our control. We have to try to mitigate those threats, but they're outside of our control. So I think it's important as a workshop that we sit back and do this analysis. I mean, I look at this document and, it's very inwardly looking. All the participants, these are all You did. Okay. I think it'd be important to share that. And because I would think a consultant that would make that foundational to any kind of strategic plan, but they're not documented in here. So, so I think looking at strengths and opportunities, and you have objectives that, kind of hone in on what those strengths are. I mean, obviously you got some really talented people here, Mike, and they do great work. And we appreciate what they do, and Damon's team out in the field, and we've been out in the field to see, what they do, and they have to do it, at all hours, at any time, any place. Right. And, this is certainly a strength, and we appreciate, respect that. But I think what Francisco and our team is focused in is what we perceive as weaknesses within the organization. And those weaknesses are really transparency. And that transparency really comes down to, you know, looking at data and trends and things like this. And I have no idea today whether this organization is getting better or getting worse. And what we cannot have a repeat episode 5 years from now that we had last year. We cannot, and I appreciate the fact that, hey, I don't want to kick this stuff, the can down the road. I don't want to push it on to the next generation of ratepayers 5, 10, 15 years from now. We've got to do this work. But I think this workshop needs to be foundational and focus on what these weaknesses are. And I think, again, Mike and Francisco have been hammering on this for some time now. Surveys, email blasts, and things like that, that's kind of getting down into the weeds a little bit. I suggest as a group, we take a step back and let's take a high level view of this and understand what these weaknesses are, which are the things that we have control over. And let's try to put some objectives and some meat on the bone that address what those weaknesses are. And that's where I would like to see this group kind of focus. Well, I think the metrics again, I mean, I'd like to see, I'll give you some specific examples. I saw a report of work orders. What's on a work order? What's the response time on that work order? What's the time to resolution on that work order? And are we trending in the right direction? How many, and Damon and I have talked about this before, scheduled maintenance versus unscheduled, break fix type of stuff. And correct me if my numbers are, if I got them wrong. I think you said that 75% of your work was planned work or unplanned work. I can't recall. So 75% of the work is planned work, which means you have 25% of the work is unplanned. What are we doing to reduce the number of unplanned service events? I mean, as we're going out and doing these repairs and these upgrades, and, all the pumps and, rebuilding pumps and, I see all this kind of stuff. What financial impact does that have? And we can't, it's like we're driving down the road. We can see out the rear view mirror, but we can't see where we're going because we don't have the information. So I think Francisco has, on a number of occasions, pointed out this as a weakness in the organization. And I think that's what this workshop should be focused on, is those weaknesses. And I'd like to see more trend data in the operationals report. I love the photos, and Damon, I learn something new every time. It's fantastic. But I'd like to see more information about the number of work orders that are being generated. Are we getting more work orders? Are we seeing repeat calls? How many repeat calls where we fix something and then it breaks again? I mean, I've heard anecdotally in the community about repeated break fix things, and maybe they're not really repeat calls. Maybe there's something else that's the root cause. But this is the kind of thing that's floating around in the community. So I really think, Mike, if you could dig up that information and say, hey, go back 3 years ago or whenever this plan was developed and say, okay, what are the 4 or 5 weaknesses that were identified when making that plan? I think that's what this workshop should focus on. And I think Francisco has pinpointed a couple of those on several occasions. And so that's the kind of thing, running a national service organization, as my prior company did, we were measuring that stuff all the time. We were looking at response times. We were looking at recalls. We were looking at time to resolution because our customers expected it and demanded it, because that's how we drove costs down and reduced their cost of operation. So I'd like to see that more kind of information. I'm willing to work with you to try to put that together and look at some of the data that you do have today. I mean, if you don't have the data, you don't have the data, okay? But the data you do have, what can we ascertain from that data? What is it telling us? Because I'm not coming to the meetings and I'm not seeing, I can't see out the windshield. And so it's
Let me
difficult for me
jump,
to-
let me jump in here and respond
Sure.
a little bit to that. Criticizing our performance on leak repairs or unanticipated repairs and stuff like that. In your previous line of work, did you work with an organization that had 350 miles of water distribution lines that were installed by the low bidder 40 years ago? That, I mean, you have rocks in the ground in direct contact with these water distribution lines. So who knows when it's going to pop through and cause 3 leaks on Copper Cove Drive all at one time. You know, that let me finish. One of the most memorable things that I can recall about when you two and maybe you also went on the tour down in Jenny Lind, as you came in here and you said, wow, you know, we really didn't know what we didn't know. Okay, well, I think that there's a little bit of that going on here also. Is it? I don't think that it is possible to build a matrix that is going to be capable of anticipating when the crew is going to have to go out at 11:30 at night to fix a leak that's caused by a rock that's been in the ground for 40 years. It's completely unrealistic to me. Please explain to me where I'm wrong.
Well, to answer your question, my customers had 50, 100, 200 manufacturing plants around the world. Many of these plants were built in the 20s, 30s, the 50s, the 70s, and they had infrastructure that was equally as archaic and so on. And so you're right. The infrastructure as it was laid out 40 years ago has inherent problems. And we learned that. This is why the tours were eye-opening for us. And we thank you for taking that time to take us out and share with us how you did things. But again, the number of leaks, that's one. I don't know how many leaks you have. How many leaks do you have a month? How many do you have in a year? Versus pump repairs and things like that. I mean, that's data that you have today. I mean, is the number of leaks, is it variable? Is it ramping up? I mean, as we look at this major AB tank replacement, I mean, the website says this is going to greatly reduce the number of incidents or leaks or whatever that are occurring on that, because that main line needs to be upgraded. Great. I mean, what about some of these other major upgrades, and have they reduced the number of, whether it's leaks or any other incident? Has it reduced the number of unplanned service events or work orders? I don't know. I don't know if we're getting better or we're staying the same or we're getting worse.
Well, much of that work it's under contract and it's being implemented now. So we won't know this to what degree that we're improving until the work is done. So
that's why you need measurements. That's why you measure. That's why you track, because you can look back and look at the ratepayers 5 years from now and look them in the eye and say, in 2021, when we started this, we were averaging X number of pump failures and leaks and da. And in the last 5 years, we've reduced that by 30% because we made major investments in our infrastructure. You gotta sell this to the ratepayers. We can't have a repeat episode this 5 years from now. During the next rate study, we've got to be able to, we're trying to we want to help you help us, right? I mean, this isn't us versus them. I mean, we got to work together on this, but, and I think we can, but we have to be able to have that information so that when the next rate study comes out, you can demonstrate with real hard facts, Russ, what these major investments accomplished that we've invested in over these next few years as a result of this rate study. A substantial amount of major projects that, for whatever reason, I looked at the last rate study in 2017, and it was pretty skinny on CIP projects from what I could gather, averaged roughly about $6 million a year. You know, how much of that could have, you know, other stuff that could have been done. And that rate study was averaging roughly 2.5–3% annual rate increases, which is very modest at the time. Now, I wasn't here then. And so maybe that work, none of this work, you know, what rose to the occasion that needed to be done. But I just feel like if you're going to build credibility with the ratepayers, the people that are paying the salaries and paying for this building and everything else, we have to show that our efforts are resulting in operational efficiency gains and reduced cost. And that maybe that next 5 year, we won't average 14.5% annual rate increases, compounded rate increases as we are under this current plan. We can't have that happen.
Well, let's talk about the, you know, when the room was full of people here that night, you were all here, and we certainly were paying attention too. But the 22% that we implemented in the first year wasn't on a whim. I mean, you all you have to do is go up, you know, up to a high level and look at all the districts in this region of California, and they all have experienced phenomenal increases of costs, and you know, length of pipe tripled in price, you know, lumber tripled in price, electrical components tripled in price. You know, our director of the finance department here came to me and pleaded. He says, we have to have 22% in the first year. We're losing money right now. We've got to have 22%. And I mean, he's the guy that makes the big bucks making these decisions and recommendations. So that's why I voted for a 22%. It was not any capricious type of thing that I wanted to shove an increase down anybody's throat.
I'm not suggesting that it was capricious. I mean, I feel that, you know, if it wasn't justified, you wouldn't be asking. I mean, we assume you did your homework, and that's why the rate study came up with the calculations, was based on what the necessary investments in the first year, the first 2 years were, and that's why it was, the rate increases were front loaded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
We know that the rate increase was front loaded in years 1 and 2 for a reason. You know, there's nothing, you know, we're not saying any of this is capricious. All we're saying is simply, if you do an analysis of the operation and, you know, what austerity measures have you taken? You know, and I think you got to report that to the ratepayers, you know, and again, I'm talking, you know, the next rate study that starts 3 years from now, right? You know, we have to show some measurable results that demonstrate to the ratepayers that the investments they've made in this current rate period are paying off, and that we're protecting the next generation of ratepayers from this happening again. I mean, we're this, you know, the cat's out the door, you know, we mixing my metaphors here, but yes, sir.
Thank you. I think we did that with the last rate increase with you know, we had capital improvement projects happening a lot on Ebbets Pass. Correct. And a lot of those projects, we were having massive mainline blowouts, draining tanks on tech line or techite line breaks and stuff. And I believe we voiced that to the ratepayers at our town hall meetings that, you know, we did see a complete decrease in the amount of activity from those projects. So I'm saying no, at the current rate studies, these town halls,
those town halls, because I think it was definitely significant. But I think it has to be an ongoing thing. You just don't report on it every 5 years when you do a rate study. I mean, I think, on a monthly basis or a semi-annual basis or a quarterly basis, here's where we are. Here's where we are. Here's the 8 or 10 CIP projects that are currently, and here's their status, and here's their expected completion dates and so on. Where's that tracking of these CIP projects? And yeah,
it's engineering committee and
and again, but the public,
you're asking for what are the results of the CIP rather than when was the CIP project completed. You're asking for how many exact.
Yeah, there are two different things. Obviously we're tracking existing CIP projects that are in the works, right? And how are we within budget? Are we on time? Right? Those are pretty simple things. And I'm sure you monitor that in the engineering meeting and you hold your vendors' feet to the fire to stay within budget and on time. Right, Mark? Sure. For unknown and absolutely. And I get change orders and all that happens, but I think, and again, I'm going back to what we perceive as weaknesses that Francisco has tried to point out, is that if we consistently share the data, I mean, people love charts and graphs, they love pictures. If you just throw a bunch of numbers in a spreadsheet and, their eyes glaze up, right? I know mine do. But if I can see that we're trending, hey, Damon, last summer we had 75 leaks over the course of the summer, whatever number, pick a number, doesn't matter. And this year, that the number of leaks we've had has gone down 20%. Yeah, public's going to say we're making progress. My water's expensive. I'm not happy about it, but hey, I see light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train coming at me. Okay. And that's where I feel like this workshop and I think that, I appreciate the opportunity, because I think it's something that we can work on together so that when you do the monthly, I mean, I'd like this. I don't want to have to come to an engineering meeting to hear about this. I want, the normal regular meeting, the two or three slides though, that show, how you're progressing with CIP projects. If that's in the regular board meeting, Mike, in your piece, here's 2 slides from the engineering group. Here's 2 slides from finance meeting, because the public, that's generally, the monthly meeting that they attend. We can't possibly be at all the meetings. I mean, there's the 3 of us here, we feel like part-time employees. We've been here so much, but, but, that's where I'd like to see, some progress, is that when I come to a monthly board meeting, that I get a sense of where we're going. I'm looking out the windshield and I can see where we're going. And so I don't know, Francisco, I've said enough. I'll stop, but Jesse, go ahead.
Just real quick. So I just want to point out, it's a great idea tracking, we'll just say the leaks. We track leaks, but unforeseen causes. So our leak trends are coming down, but unforeseen causes, our leaks are trending up. So it's kind of like asking the police department, okay, crime's coming down, but then you have a gang of hoodlums go through and crime spikes up. It's not the police department's fault, right? But people look at that and go, you guys aren't doing your job because leaks are going up.
You know, and we've fought that battle, you know, on social media. And, you know, we read the comments about, oh, throw the bums out and all this kind of thing. And our comment was, what are you going to do? What's your plan? How are you going to fix all the stuff that's broken? Crickets. There is no plan. So, you know, what you're talking about is spot on. You know, we recognize that the misperceptions and, you know, and I said, look, you can turn over the entire board. That's not going to stop stuff from breaking. The stuff still needs to be fixed.
It's nice. It gives everybody a little breath in between comments. It's like the old fashioned talking stick, right? Yeah. I think just to clarify, correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, I think that the point you're trying to make is that even, you know, we make these investments and the trends though may or may not necessarily show, depending on how we're looking at it and what we're tracking. You know, we may make investments, you know, we are about to make a huge investment in the A to B transmission line, and we may see leaks in a different part of the service area go up. And I think that's what Jesse is touching on and that's not necessarily a failure of that project or a failure of the district. That might be unrelated circumstances that led to that. But if we're just showing a simplified, you know, data set, people are going to beat us up for that because the context isn't there, which is why we really like to report these things out in the committee meetings and in the board meetings. I think what Kelly did today, and I'm sorry if I circle back to this, I think Kelly did it earlier today, and it jumped out to me as a really good example of, you know, showing the trends in the customer calls that we're able to answer, and there was a dip in performance. And then it starting to tick back up again. But without the explanation, the narrative that came along with that as to why there's a dip in performance, those numbers they might look bad or worse than they actually are. And so that's where I think you might be perceiving some reluctance on our end because it also, to me, you know, it could take a lot of effort to develop, you know, specific, distill down data to specific metrics that actually reflect district operations. That could take a lot of work. And so if we're going to put a huge amount of work into that, and then the output may not show what, you know, the expectation is, then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit. And I also feel like too, and you guys have heard me say this before, and you're probably tired of hearing me say it, but I think it's worth repeating. You know, even when we're fully staffed, we're short staffed. And so if we're going to add a significant work effort to our staff, we need to be very cognizant of the trade-offs. There will be trade-offs in that because you know, we have a lack of bandwidth as it is, even when we are fully staffed. Oh, hold on.
So just anecdotally, the pieces of information that are on a work order, the date, the time, the location, you know, when they close the work order. Okay. Is that information in electronic form?
Yeah, it is, but it also doesn't necessarily, there is no, again, it needs context, right? Because what kind of leak is, or it's a leak that took us 6 months to get to. But okay, so now we're talking about a lot of work going into developing these metrics and then also providing narrative behind them, which again, we already do in the committee meetings in a lot of cases. But a leak, you know, we may have a leak that took us 6 months to repair. And that you just put that data out there and customer might go, what is wrong with this water district? It takes 6 months to fix a leak. It might be because that leak is a trickle and we had 100 leaks that we fixed during that 6-month period of time that were actually significant. And so we're just not a reflection necessarily of failure. It's a reflection of prioritization and decisions that the district had to make. Exactly. Right. So that's not necessarily a negative, although it'd be nice if we didn't have any leaks that lasted that long. We get back to the bandwidth issue, but that to me is where we could run into trouble if we distill things down to a point where they're oversimplified and then we don't have context. And so that's why I've always emphasized the importance of providing this information, but providing it in the committee reports or in the board reports. And we're absolutely open to, ways to make it better, ways to report out better. We appreciate that input. Right. It won't pick you up. You got to talk.
No, it's the design.
That's what I see this workshop being about, Mike, is that we focus on where the weaknesses, where the gaps are, and to the extent that we're not able to fill those gaps because we don't have the bandwidth or we don't have the data, then, let's accomplish the things that are smart, that are attainable and measurable, that we have the information on now. We know we have specific pieces of information on the work order that are captured electronically somewhere. And once you have it in a database, then, you can begin to ascertain some things. And again, I did the same thing. I would have to stand up in front of my customers and explain to them why their machine keeps breaking down. Without context, they didn't understand it. Once we gave them context, they understood. People weren't properly trained on the machine. They didn't maintain the machine properly, or whatever the root causes were. So absolutely context is important.
I think one of the things that we would like to keep in the forefront is we're not chasing numbers to chase numbers so we can talk a good game or describe what wonderful things we can do, et cetera. We're trying to improve operational effectiveness. So if there's something that we can measure that helps us get costs down or helps us reduce other expenses or leverages one way or another, that's what we would put in the priority list of things to go out there. The other stuff will fall by the wayside because things get better and start to improve things. So that's the priority that I would want to focus on. Is it going to have economic effect? Is it going to have productivity effect? Is it going to have efficiency effects? Then is it going to cost more to track it? The old, $100 fence for a $5 goat? No, we want to be smart in not just the goal definition, but also what we pick to go after, because we recognize the bandwidth limitations.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that focus on operational benefit, because I think that's where we would prioritize as well. I think, this may be hard to, probably going to articulate this wrong, but, or I guess it's probably just an unsatisfactory response, maybe is the nature of what I'm about to say. But I think the reality is we do that all the time. And we have a really good team of people that focus on that stuff every day. It's not necessarily easy to always report out on it in a way that is easily digestible, immediately. And so the trade-off for us is, well, not only is there potentially an operational benefit and that could improve decision-making, but how much work are we going to put into the report out versus adding value internally? Because that's, to me, that's kind of the rub is, well, okay, we could develop these metrics. We could report out on these things that we already kind of have a feel for internally. But if we're doing it just for the purpose of reporting out, and I'm not saying that's not a good purpose, we should be as transparent as possible and sharing that information to the extent we can. But that's, to me, where the cost benefit starts to change, is if we're just doing it to report out versus the operational benefit piece, then where is that balance that we're just trying to strike?
And the evidence of your focus and the success of that effort, I think would be readily apparent in the discussions that the board initiates when they do presentations, that the kinds of questions that come up, the kinds of issues that come up, they don't ring true to me as, their actual numbers or measures or whatever that you're looking at. It's like you trust Damon's judgment on making the right decisions, and that's fine. But it leads to us not being able to figure out what's going on. So yes, there has to be some level of trade-off between that. For example, the A to B line is going in, right? March, it's going out to bid or going out to the public to let us know how much they want to put in the A to B line, right?
It's going to the board for contract award.
Okay, so it's time to go. One of the comments that I received back when I was sharing, they're going to replace the line A to B. Oh, you mean they're finally going to fix that leak at Hartwickson and Silver Rapids? I mean, where did that come from? What are you talking about? Oh, that's been there for years. I'm thinking, well, maybe that's why that hasn't been addressed, because why tear up a main line that you have to shut down a bunch of people to work on it if you're going to come and do the main line replacement? I don't know, but for that to be general knowledge out there and to use it as a stick to beat you guys with, I don't understand why it's there. Maybe Damon knows, but I've heard stories. Well, the spring is upflowing from the. Yeah. So, but that's what's out there. It's like, how do we build? There's a good reason why it's here what it is. I don't know.
Well, I think one thing to bear in mind is that we have a crew of 3, and so just take the Jenny Lind water system, for example. So they spend the majority of their time fixing leaks, right? That's not ideally what they should be spending their time doing. There's a whole host of things that those folks need to do. And it actually frustrates them that they can't get to what they would like to do to optimize the system. So when you take, for example, a perception that there's a continual leak on a main at Silver Rapids and Hartwickson, it could very well be groundwater. It could very well be a leak, 400 feet away. We just don't know. But because our crew spends so much time fixing leaks and they're visible all over the system, that the natural perception is just going to be like, oh, well, that's a leak, and they haven't gotten to it. And kind of touches upon the example that Michael brought up, the fact that you could have a leak that sits in the work order system or in the service request system, really, because there's 2 different components that go along here with what y'all are talking about. That could be there for 6 months simply because it's a wet spot in the road, whereas you had a leak that showed up. That was a call to customer service 2 days ago that it's damaging property. So that one's going to to the top of the list. So it's this constant cycle of react and repair, right? So it's responding to failure. And then meanwhile, there's all these perceptions that just prevail because we simply just can't get to the work.
The only thing I can suggest is sharing that it is a priority 3. We went and did 15 priority 2s and 35 priority 1s at the cost savings of X amount. So we felt that by diverting very scarce resources to priority 1s and 2s, we met your overall goal of keeping costs down. But, something out there, because it just keeps making it harder to come back. Well, doing the best.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if it was the last ops report or the one before, but I know Damon touched on some of these repeat leaks. And I think even the leak that we took you folks out to see.
Did it read?
No, but he did a good job of explaining why the repeat is there. It's not necessarily that it's continuing to leak or we didn't fix it right the first time. Like I said, I'm not sure if it was the last ops report, but he showed these leaks will spring up 5 feet down the line and so forth. And we don't have the bandwidth at that time to replace the whole line, which some might say is do the right thing, right? However, we have moved in that direction. That is the whole point of the utility crew, because we took this stance as a district instead of putting Band-Aids on constantly to develop this crew. So it was nice because you guys got to see and Mike did a fantastic job of explaining that. We saw the patch, and then unfortunately, I spent a huge portion of my time here doing that, where you'd fix it and then months later, you go and fix it 20 feet over there. And you want to replace the entire line, but it doesn't work that way all the time.
It's the context that Mike was describing.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of it, because that's reality. You know, some things are not predictable, and you fix this and 20 feet down the road, you know.
Yeah, I'd just point out, and I'm glad you brought that example up, Kelly, because yeah, we did pivot to, instead of just Band-Aids, replacement, address the root cause of the problem at a lower cost than, by building that capacity internally, we can do it at a lower cost than by bringing contractors in. And we got into a lot of detail on that particular story in the rate study presentation. And the reason I bring that up is because I think part of what we're reacting to here a little bit is the feedback that we got during the rate increase process. But I also think we have to be cautious not to overreact to that, because a lot of the feedback we got was from people who didn't listen or pay attention or have even the openness to hear what we said in that slide, or even want to entertain what we were talking about, right? They had made up their mind before they showed up, and they were lashing out at us, and they're still lashing out at us no matter what we say. And so there's that again, we get back to that trade-off of cost benefit, like how much time, how many resources are we going to dedicate to trying to address feedback that we got from certain folks who have already told us they're not going to trust us or believe us or care what comes out of our mouth or what we say. And that's again, and that's not to be dismissive of the concerns, because we got a lot of also legitimate concerns and questions during that process. And so we need to be, mindful of that and responsive to those things. But I don't want the organization to overreact to try to quell all of the criticism, because that would be impossible.
We're trying to focus all of that. That gentleman, he has got most control over.
You're going to force them to go back to fixing leaks.
No. Fixing leaks. I mean, the perceptions, context, and the explanations and the report outs. That's going to provide the story that wasn't there 4 months ago. Just wasn't there. We're all doing water resources managers. Now you're doing external relations, external management. That's where that.
I think some of the point is I was trying to make this, it was there, and there was a lot of just, we're not hearing it. And so and I understand, and I do, please don't get me wrong when I'm, during this dialogue, I really do appreciate the insight and the feedback that you guys are giving us. And there are opportunities for us to do better on all of these things. And so, that's really, we really appreciate the fact that you're here sitting down with us, having this conversation. So I only point that out, that some of that was there, and it's still, it's still got the reception that we all witnessed.
We're waiting for the candidates.
Right.
I just wanted to mention, everyone keeps mentioning perception, right? And we said earlier, how do we measure trust, right? How do we measure if we're being trusted? Well, that goes the other way too. How are we measuring that we're not trusted? If we can't measure that we're being trusted, we don't know that we're not either. So it goes both ways. And so we do have a certain amount of folks that are vocal and negative or distrustworthy of us, but we have a lot that are positive too. I read every comment, and there is a substantial amount of good too, but for whatever reason, the negative ones seem to rise to the top. That's what we remember. If we can have 10 wonderful comments in a day, and then someone says something horrible to you, for whatever reason, maybe it's human nature, but that's what we remember. So if we can't measure this trust and whether or not we're trusted, we can't measure that we're not either.
My comment, Mike, was you're right. In any initiative, any campaign, there's this 30% that it doesn't matter what you do, what you say, you're not going to reach those people. There's 30% or a third of the people that get it. I heard comments that at the town halls that, it's way too much detail, that people didn't understand it. I'm a facts and data guy. It didn't bother me a bit. I was really appreciative of those examples that you guys laid out at the town halls, because being new to the area, I was like, what's happening here, right? But it's that 30% in the middle. That's the people you're trying to reach. You know, you're not going to get that third that don't want to listen, don't want to learn anything. They've got their mind made up, but that soft middle, that's the people that, we've got to try to reach and convince. And one of the ways to do that is with the metrics and the kinds of things that we're talking about, where if you can demonstrate, for example, and I remember Jeff talking about, overtime and why there was a blip in one particular month in overtime, and he explained it and so on. And your group who is doing more of the proactive, the more proactive kind of things. And if you can show we did these proactive activities and as a result, we've reduced our overtime by X. I mean, that simple little thing, that goes a long way to convincing that third of the people that are in the middle, okay, I see why they did that now. That makes sense to me. And hey, they reduce overtime. So
they give you that information in a board meeting. So those people that aren't here listening to it, how do we tell them? How do we give them that context? Is it the newsletter? Is it email blasts? Is it on the website? Right? I mean, I hear that we need to do some metrics and measure, but I also hear that we need to verbally tell them. And the presentations these two did today gave a lot of good information, I think. And that's probably what they're looking for. So we do more of that on top of some metrics of some kind.
Right. And these presentations that you see today will be on YouTube, and we can, this is why we're encouraging the microphones. So this conversation we're having now is, we'll be able to see it for eternity. But I want to touch on well, this is good. This is again, that last ops report that I put out, we got, I think, up to 56 views, where before we were seeing like 2 views, 1 view. I mean, Rebecca's seen it. She's over there nodding her head. I mean, us doing that it's reaching out, it's getting out there. But what I want to touch on is the presentations during the rate study. That was a challenge. You're very right. We need to go to a certain group of folks. We've heard that it was too much. We've heard that it was a foreign language. I've also heard that it was too dumbed down. I mean, we had one slide that showed our power. You can't get more dumbed down than that. Last year, $1 million, this year it cost $2 million, but some people thought that was, just a fancy grab. I heard this quote that you can't be everything to everybody. And it was very difficult to try to, the high level folks, the number crunchers like yourself, that's important. And that's the rate study component of that is what we showed. And that put some people to sleep. It made some people annoyed. But then we also showed the other part and the cost savings of the utility crew. We showed the cost savings of the purchasing agent. And so that was shown, but it's difficult because, again, you can't be everything to everybody.
All we're asking to do is to take that information and don't wait 5 years to share it. Just, it doesn't have to be maybe every month, but, maybe quarterly or something. Here's the progress that we're making because we're doing these proactive things with the utility crew. And the result is, the number of leaks, and I'm just using leaks as an example, but pump failures, whatever it might be, we've been able to reduce that. Result is we've seen a marginal improvement in the amount of overtime that we've had to spend. And so people begin to see, that there's progress, that we're getting let's just not wait 5 years to explain what we did the previous 5 years, because by that point, to your point, that third of the people, their mind's made up. You're not gonna influence.
I think your observations of what the town hall was to the audience, to me, serves as food for thought in your program design as to how you're going to structure your communication strategy so that when you do that town hall, everybody goes, oh yeah, you did that. Oh yeah, that's great. Oh yeah. And they connect and they are with you, as opposed to the very first time they get it is, and
it's a great point. And I have ongoing dialogue with other water agency GMs. And I honestly feel like somebody should do a PhD dissertation on this subject, because there are a lot of different approaches that agencies take, and there doesn't seem to be, you know, a single recipe that always works. And it's going to vary from community to community. I think in our case, we have the challenge of being as spread out as we are, in addition to some other just unique, you know, circumstances, but every agency has that. And so there are some agencies that take kind of a minimalist approach. There's the bare minimum Prop 218 requirements that we have to meet, right? We've got to get the notice out. We got to mail it 45 days before the public hearing. And then we have to have a public hearing where we listen to everybody, and that's all we're going to do. And they're, you know, they get some criticism for that, and I would criticize them for that too. And then I think we were on the opposite end of that spectrum, where we put a ton of work into that presentation, and it had a ton of information in it, and almost to the point where we had to question whether we were fueling that fire.
We were.
At a certain point. And so are we oversharing? At the same time, we're being criticized for not being transparent. And so there's no, you know, it's like I said, there's just so many variables and so many different ways to do it. And so, but I think to your point, yes, we've got to look back at what we did and how it went, and continue to try to figure out how we can do it better every time, not waiting the 5 years at the next town hall, because we do multiple town halls every year. And so it's just an ongoing process of human psychiatry.
A newsletter or a town hall. I think the town hall is probably the most effective, you know, and I guess they're kind of regional. We attended one over in Copper, for example, too, with it. But in the interest of time today, you know, I would like to see maybe a recap of, you know, a list of maybe 5 things, no more than 5, that fall into Francisco's definition as being, you know, would you say smart and measurable and achievable or whatever? You know, let's see if we can boil this down to 4 or 5 objectives, so that when we come back, we say, okay, if we, you know, and again, we're thinking of things that where the data exists that have a financial impact. You know, I mean, I appreciate that there's, you know, phone calls coming in and so on, and the number of phone calls and how quickly we respond, and that's important. But, you know, at the end of the day, is there really a, you know, does it have a financial impact? I know overtime has a financial impact. And so if we can focus on, you know, just 4 or 5 basic things that we can report out on a regular basis, maybe some that were in the initial rate study, Mike, that, you know, you know, again, we don't want you to reinvent the wheel or anything, but to the extent that there are things that we can do today, and that on a periodic basis that Kelly can report out through whatever medium is the most efficient and cost effective, then let's try to, you know, boil it down to 4 or 5 objectives, and maybe you guys want to talk about it and maybe send us a list of what you think, you know, you can reasonably achieve without significant investments in bandwidth.
So you want something that has some kind of an economic, effect that you want us to start measuring?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it has a financial impact, you know, and on operations, and, you know, if Damon's crew, you know, as a benchmark, if we could get to 80% planned work instead of, you know, we're operating at 7, you know, is that a stretch goal that's potentially achievable with all these improvements we're making?
And that's a hard one to really measure.
Oh,
with
okay.
precision.
It's just an
Me, I think-
example. I'm just saying,
Yeah, no, I think,
you know,
one of the things I think we've been talking about that jumps out at me, and I don't know, because it could be project specific too, right? Like, we do report back regularly, periodically. I don't think we have it on a fixed schedule, but the utility crew, we give an update on, you know, how many service lines they've replaced. And so, but I think the benefits, the returns from investments that to me is one thing we've talked about that you guys have mentioned that is something we do need to do a better job of. And, so Reach One, I think would be an example, that's almost a $10 million project. And we could probably go back and, come up with a pretty good number of main breaks and other, emergency responses and things like that we had for Reach One and Techite. Is another one that comes to mind that, just look at the 2 years before we did those two projects and look at the 2 years since. And, so kind of on a project specific basis, I think there are certainly some things that we could report back on and we should. So that's kind of what comes to mind for me. I'll definitely put some more thought into whether there are others.
Can you, Michael, make a list working with Damon and Jesse? You guys already have programs that you're tracking a lot of stuff. So between anything, the info you already have, and either bring the list back to the next meeting, maybe even a couple little numbers if you already have it. And let's see how you've presented to us here today. And if that's in your alley, it's not taking up much time, then we talk about how we can get it out to the rest of the public, not just you folks, at the next meeting. Is that, and again, because of the bandwidth, we don't want to have that much on staff to do, but if you could pick out something you already have the numbers on, and really on your operations report, you already have a lot of those numbers. You see that list in the back, it says how many leaks they've done and stuff like that. So if it's there and you just put it in a different format, this many leaks in this area.
Just to show year to date, where we're at or relative to prior year.
But
I mean,
we also got to remember, if we're asking them
the
to do
project-
this stuff, how are you going to use it? How do we present it to know we do all this work? What's it going to benefit us? What's going to be that outcome from that info? If we do all this and it's not a real benefit that you can see, move on to something else, or, you know what I mean? We don't want to take up their time that much.
Busy.
Exactly. We don't need that. They have enough of that.
So, hey, in summary, that's what, I'd like to see is we come back and, you got 4 or 5 things that you can reasonably report on without, where you have the existing data to work with. And you could report that out. And again, where you could show Kelly, present it to him. And if it's a couple of slides, you can say, hey, look where we were 5 years ago. And because we did this project, and this project, we don't have any of those issues over there. And Mike, you're right. It's probably project specific. And so
Those 2 might be good things that you can work on for right now as far as the metrics go, if they already have that data. And I think the CIPs that you talked about, Mike, would be good. The ones that are done. Michael, sorry. But I still think that this communication is important, that we talked about. So maybe we could bring that back as well. You can bring that streamline to here, or to the board or the finance, wherever it goes first.
And the progress report on the strategic plans.
Yes.
Since the president is largely charged with the responsibility of bringing up things for the agenda, future agendas, that you mentioned that you had to do some analysis on the spring line or the analyzing the cost of changing your vendor on the website. Okay, but I think that it should be on the agenda for the 13th. That here's the relative cost of continuing with what we had. Here's the incremental cost for going with a bigger and better, more
The benefit.
and the benefit, but let's not analyze. It should be on the 13th next month.
On the board.
Yeah, on the board agenda.
Well, I think we're gonna have to meet in Hawaii. Then I think that's where Kelly will be. So we'll go to him. No. The reason I looked at you was not because I know you're not here for that. The question is yeah, do we have that? Will we have that information available on the 13th, or should? I don't want to overpromise. That's so basically by the end of next week, would we have the breakdown? Because what we talked about internally is, there are the website will cost more, but it will also offset some costs. There'll be some savings associated with it, and there's additional value. There's additional value that it will provide. And so that's kind of the breakdown that we're working on right now. And so I just don't know where we're at on that and whether that would be done.
Michael, here's one of my complaints, if you will. It takes so long sometimes to get these things done. Is there any way we could say it can be moved to the tops and then get it here by the 13th? If Kelly won't be here, somebody.
Oh, no, we can present it not as well as he can, but we can,
Right.
we can do our best.
And Russ, you and I can.
The 13th is a very full agenda. And so I guess I'm not saying no. There's a lot of, finance staff are involved in that effort. We currently don't have any other than one.
But here's the
retired
thing, Michael.
who's working for us 2 days a week.
We have
So-
a time moving forward. This guy's asking
Agree.
you for it.
It is
I'm
hard.
telling
but
him to be.
we're asking us, we're having to do the minimum on accounting and finance right now. And so we're going to have to shift some priority. That's why we didn't have mid-year
Why-
budget and audit ready in time
Yes.
as soon as we would have. liked.
Why don't you go over the current agenda items with him?
Doggone it. I don't see anything wrong with assuming the position that we had this, what I think is a wonderful meeting, wonderful opportunity to have communication instead of, we'll get back to you on that. That I feels good here this afternoon. That's why I was very, very compelled to have this discussion take place down at ground zero, that I insisted on it. But you can take it to the board on the 13th, just as this is something that came out of this performance tracking workshop. The recommendation of the external relations committee of 2 says that we had to look closely at changing our vendor. It doesn't have to be for approval of that. I'd just like to see, again, an acknowledgement that we had this discussion and bring it to the board and see if they have any comments. Doesn't have to be an action item. It's just kick it to the next agenda. Go ahead.
Will do.
Just real quick, are we talking 200 grand, 450 grand, 50 grand, 25K? Just to give me a ballpark of where they're coming from for the streamline.
$2,500 for the initial build out and $1,100 a month.
So
Compared to,
We are, yes, a month. We are working. Okay. No, it was 1,100. Oh, 6,000 per year. So we're working on, there's different components of that, and that's what we're putting together. I really want this website, so not to step on any toes, or if the 13th is too busy, but I will gladly put in whatever effort is necessary to display this to you guys, because I really believe in it, and I really, really, really want it, along with many of my other colleagues, especially in the PRT. So if that's something we want to do, I would be more, whether I'm on vacation or not, I will make it happen. They are a great company. They will present as well, and I will phone in, no problem. So, and we'll at least present. You guys can decide, but we are working on the finances because, again, this wasn't something that was budgeted. This really just came up in the last month or two. But when we saw it, we think that this tool can check off so many boxes of what we're discussing here. And this would be an enormous step forward. Is it going to check off every box? No, but it's a huge step forward.
Would whoever does it now still have to upload the agendas and all that kind of stuff, or do they do it?
No, Rebecca would still do it. How?
A lot.
Well,
but
that's for the
I
serv-
see- It's okay. I want that.
Yeah.
Stuff.
There's of course different levels and we can present that as well. But I think when we're talking about email blasts, when we're talking about metrics, I mean, right now with our website, unless we pay more, I can only see so much. So I can only go back so far. If you want to go back like a year, we have to pay for that. We have a bare bones one. So this, I think would make Rebecca's job much easier because she is the one doing the committee meetings and the board meetings. And as we all know, we have a lot of board meetings and a lot of committee meetings. And so this would be a great tool that, again, I think it'd be fantastic. So I'm on board for that for sure.
Like a deload. Load reduction.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to bring up here is you mentioned this A to B line thing. It is coming to us for approval of that contract. And interestingly, that the low bidder came in at $1 million under our engineer's estimate. So my question for the round table here is, what do we do with that savings? Do we bank it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Reduce rates. You gotta, if there's a way we could reduce rates, bank it.
Refund.
I have a comment on that. The CIP is severely underfunded. It's been underfunded for a generation or two here. That's typical of many water districts and cities. It's just a lot of unfunded, underfunded CIP. And so for us to say bank it, it's just like you don't have the foresight that there's a lot of need out there that we've trimmed for this go around on the rate study. We trimmed the CIP once, we trimmed it again, and we laid out the risks involved with trimming it yet a second time. And yet the rate study only covers, I think year 3, you may have some funding towards CIP, maybe not. But the thing is year 1 and year 2 is just for operational needs. Year 3, there might be some funding there, not a lot. And of course the need vastly exceeds what's available fund-wise. So, and then we've been told engineers need to go out and find funds. Well, that's kind of like a new concept for me. When I started my engineering career, funding was always there. Now it's not there anymore. So that's the issue we're having. And like, again, we make improvements and it helps operations short-term in that area, but there are other areas that are being neglected that will reflect on their workload because there are other failures that are just pending out there. So just keep that in mind as that, we may save $1 million because it came under the engineer's estimate. Great. But there are other needs out there too that would far exceed that $1 million.
Right now, 200 million that you identified as the potential. I know it's not the full 5-year rate case. If we did all of them, it would cost each and every person on your accounts $13,000, each and every one. And that's a number we need to work to find more tolerable. Start looking at the percent of capital improvements based on the base, and you start comparing it against industry. Maybe industry screwing up, but this is a big load on a per person or per capita basis for capital improvement. So that's where I'm coming from, is there a way, or are there some things in there that are not that close to the red line of risk and failure and breaking that we could extend a little more? Maybe not, I don't know. I'm not you.
So we put a lot of effort into distilling that list down, and some of the projects we took out because we went from 200 million to 85 million, and then we didn't fund the full 85 million. And some of the projects we took out, we were not I can tell you from an operations and engineering perspective, comfortable removing. And some of them are we're going to potentially see some consequences. So I think you said 13,000 per customer. Maybe we just do an assessment. No, I shouldn't joke about that. But because I think the reality is at some point we have to do it. Those projects aren't going away and they're not getting cheaper. And we don't have the option of not providing service. So at some point, we will be doing those projects one way or another. It will be emergency repair potentially, which will cost significantly more versus planned replacement, or we'll find the funds to do it one way or another. But right now, we kind of have hope in those years 4 and 5 of our rate structure right now, but that's, state
Yeah,
funds
so-
are drying up. We have now a $73 billion budget deficit on statewide. So
Yeah, so one of
grant
the,
funds availability are decreasing at the federal level as well. So we're seeing less money available for these projects. There'll be a bond on the ballot in November, so maybe some of that will be available for us for infrastructure, maybe not. But it's the sources of funding are decreasing, and the cost and the need to do those projects is not.
so that's one of those things on the priority list or bullet list would be, the grant funding. I know you hired a third party consultant to assist with that effort, and maybe, getting an update on where we're at with those. And I know you want to be careful, Michael, to not present facts, figures as facts, that are unrealized, but I mean, some way, hey, we're applying for these grants. I mean, obviously with this multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure bill that Congress passed a few years, I mean, that's money that's spread out over 10 years. So there is some funding there through the federal government, but of course. I mean, yeah, well, I mean, again, you're making the effort. You've hired a third party to come in and assist with that effort. So any success story you have in that regard, like the generator, project, and reporting out on that, that's a positive development. So, and the tracking of your CIP projects, again, on time, under budget. I mean, if you can show that, hey, this thing's, $1 million under budget, and, yeah, you got to use it somewhere else, Mark. I get that because of unforeseen change orders that happen. We get it. But, any of that kind of thing that you can report back to the public through whatever channel is most efficient and will get, the most impact without adding, significant cost to do so. I think newsletters are great, but they, somebody's got to print them and distribute them and things like that. And, websites and emails are relatively inexpensive to do. So, come back to us with, kind of where you think the 4 or 5 things are that you think you can reasonably achieve in a reasonable amount of time that have financial impact. That's a great place for us, I think, to start. So thank you all for doing this and setting this up, because it's been, in my view, been pretty productive.
Would the website count as like 3 things? Yeah. Because that way I can communicate what we're already doing, and so we can check off 3. I don't. But if it's a vehicle, that helps me communicate these. I mean, it's a joke, but also serious.
It's
Nice
try.
You said earlier, Micah, about how you have kind of jumped into the fray and tried to diffuse negative comments and, ask the question, what are you going to do and everything. I've seen so many times when Kelly puts up some of his wonderful work, his drone photographs and stuff, and people comment that, I wonder how much this costs. They must have hired some Madison Avenue ad company or something. My question is, should we go down the rabbit hole and try to respond to that as a district, or just ignore it?
It really depends how thoughtful the response is. I think, because you run the risk of, getting into the fray and it depends. If it is at that 30%, that doesn't matter what you say. I mean, they're not, but if it's if it seems well thought out and reasonable question, then perhaps, but as a general rule, I would say probably not.
As a general rule, we don't.
Yeah.
I did once for that issue.
And then you regretted it?
Immediately, I mean, within 5 minutes, somebody said, "You're lying." Like,
well, yeah. What are you gonna?
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
So, I think selectively, we generally don't go into the comments section.
But
It's
this is where the
productive.
CCWD advisory group kind of runs interference.
Appreciate that.
So, we have been running a little bit of interference out there and, specific to, the petitions and things like that, and just simply asking the question, what's your plan?
Yeah.
How are you going to fix this? This stuff's still going to break. And as I said earlier, crickets. And, and people start to, they don't have to respond. They see through it. They see through it and they say, well, what's it going to get us? Because, if you take an organization and you completely turn it upside down, and you've got a bunch of new players. I mean, it takes you 6 months to a year just to get into the burn to even understand how things run. So, it didn't make a lot of sense to us. We understand the anger and the frustration that's out there. But so we tried to run a little bit of interference, but we didn't, we weren't out there regularly posting. We were just kind of refuting things that maybe were misconceptions.
And we certainly appreciated that. And we don't expect you to stick your neck out too far on our behalf, but we definitely appreciated that.
We've moved 3 times as a result.
One last point, I've already mentioned this a little bit, but just in terms of priorities for between now and the next external relations meeting, one of the items we'll have on the board agenda for the 13th is bringing in an outside accounting firm that will help us bridge the gap between getting our staff back up but we're also, we're on the clock for budget development. We have to create a new enterprise fund. We've got a lot of significant accounting work that we need to do that we're not currently staffed to do. And so we're bringing in some outside help to do that. And then the process, though, of getting that firm on board and delivering what we need them to deliver is going to be a huge focus for us over the next month. So I think you're going to be really pleased with the outcome of that. But we've got to really focus on that over the next month in particular.
Again, once you have this, bullet list, prepared, I mean, if there's stuff that we can do, to help you guys, I mean, we're obviously on the outside looking in here but I mean, if, there's a particular initiative or something, that somehow we can help or add value, let us know.
I hear you play guitar.
Well, yeah, that's not going to help you a whole lot, though.
Yes.
But,
I can appreciate that.
I just,
Absolutely. I think
I don't know what it
put
would
some thought
be,
into
or, I mean, like I said, we're kind of trying to understand and what the challenges are and communicate to people on kind of on an anecdotal basis, what we see and hear. And it's hard to say what impact that's had, but we have asked some pretty hard questions of people that have, are running around with pitchforks and torches, So
appreciate it.
So, we're just trying to get them, to slow down and, really be a little bit more analytical and maybe take some of the emotion out of it. And because, the work has to be done. We've got to get the work done. We can't don't want to go through this 5 years from now. And we don't want the legacy of this organization to kick the can down to the road to the next generation of ratepayers that, deserve better. So the work that you're doing today, has to pay off for, the folks that are, going to be ratepayers 10 and 15 years from now.
So, I'll tell you some of the bullet points I wrote for our next meeting. We know Damon's going to do his best to make a list of a couple items he already has info on, do it within his time allotment. On the setting SMART goals guidelines, Francisco alluded to, he's going to help me look. So I'll print up what those guidelines are and bring them back or give them to you to put in the board packet. The other thing is we kind of wanted to look at what those weaknesses were that were identified in the strategic plan. If you want to send me that, I'll pull them out and line it up for the next meeting. And so I think those things, you might do an update for us on the website, telling us all the features if we have time. And then it looks like we're going to meet the fourth Tuesday of every month. That work, right? 1 o'clock for everybody in this format?
Okay, I apologize for dragging this meeting out, but it was required. Okay. Okay. All right. So if we're finished with comments, I think that this meeting should be adjourned. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, guys. And just a heads up, in case you're curious, we have the board meeting tomorrow.